So,
Hey, there we are. We had a little technical difficulty there at the beginning.
who knew?
Yeah. All right, guys, how you doing? So I'm Mike, owner of the In-Group in Phoenix, Arizona. This is my buddy John Dixon. We brought on a guest for this particular show.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Johnny's been in the music business a long, long time. We got a project we're working on. I'll talk to you guys a little bit later on. That's kind of one of the reasons I brought him in. Johnny worked at Impulse. Johnny worked at Capitol, did a lot of A&R work, owns the Audio Recorders Archive, which is essentially the largest archive of Arizona music. So that's kind of his full-time gig, is doing reissues and maintaining kind of the history of Arizona music.
Yeah, that's what I do. I brought some examples of things that I can't sell with me tonight, that when there's any dead air time, I'm going to go to a few things to show you that you might want to consider. But go ahead, Mike. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, but so I told you guys a little while ago, and I've kind of alluded to. So I bought Ed Michel's record collection and reel-to-reel archive maybe about, what was that, 2 months ago?
Mm-hmm.
And actually that contact was made through Johnny here. John knows Ed Michel since the 70s.
Correct.
And contacted me, and kind of we talked about it a little bit, and we made a trip of it. But how did that kind of go down? So,
well, through a mutual friend, I called Ed after a while. He lives in California, and it was about something else. And then kind of just offhandedly said, "Hey, do you know anyone that'd be interested in buying my records?" And I had to think a while. Well, who pays, good money for records? Oh, anyway, I thought of Mike, and so I mentioned, I know somebody, and he'll give you a fair price, and most importantly, he'll know, what's there. It won't be kind of a mystery buy. And so anyway, we put it together, arranged a time, and drove over to Ed's, and they were able to consummate a deal, and which Mike has been, I think, talking about here in past shows. So it was easy as deals go. One day trip over and back.
It was out in California, so it was about a 5-hour drive. And there was a little bit of a catch, though, because Ed lived in Hawaii. He lived on the Big Island with you in the 90s, right?
Correct.
And there was a couple of flood situations. So unfortunately, some of the records were...
Yeah, they were in he had a lot down on the, by Javi, but down at the bottom anyway of Hawaii, kind of on volcano. And so a lot of people get lots down there, and then they build their own houses because land is cheap. And so Ed did the same thing. And then you go to Home Depot and fill it all up with wood and ship the container over there, build your house. And then Ed had a container also with his records and his musical stuff, because at the time he was still doing stuff for Fantasy, which is now Concord, but he was still doing some of the Galaxy reissues, Art Pepper, and some of the other kind of albums that they found in their vault, some of which had come out, but many which hadn't. So Ed would put them together to write the liner notes, and that's kind of what he had been doing over there. Yeah.
And he brought the records over there, with the intention of starting. He was going to teach.
I think at one time he was going to teach, and he plays bass, so he was in bands over there. He's a musician as well as a writer and producer, and so he that's I think that was his plan over there. And then, as time goes by and you realize there are some things that you might like to have a little closer by as one ages, they decided. And then they had the volcano erupting, which was a real hassle there for about a year, because they're at the bottom. And so the VOG would kind of come around the bottom and work its way up towards
pesky volcanoes.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to say, 5 years ago or something, he and his wife moved to California.
Yeah. So in case
with the container.
So for you guys who are just tuning in, we're essentially talking about Ed Michel. I purchased his record collection a couple months back. Ed Michel was probably the top producer for Impulse in the 70s. He recorded all the Alice Coltrane stuff. He was responsible for bringing Sun Ra over to Impulse. And if you look, if you go on Discogs, you'll see he has hundreds and hundreds of.
He was doing a lot of repackaging then because, Coltrane, a lot of the earlier artists, they started doing twofers, and he did that 3-record, the bass, the saxophone, the drums. So he did those box sets, and so he was, knowledgeable about the history. So he was an ideal guy to put those historical things, repackage them, as well as working on new productions.
Yeah, it was actually kind of interesting because. So we drive out there, he was a little hard of hearing, so we had to communicate via email. But when we drove out there, it's kind of a mystery because Johnny hadn't seen these records in 25, 30 years, or it had been a long time.
Yeah.
Didn't know how, you can go online, you can kind of gauge what people have worked on, but you really don't have any idea of what their collection is going to look like. So it's kind of a mystery going out there. We drive out there, we finally get there. At the time, I think I was California, kind of like having a wildfire.
Yeah, it was a little hazy.
It was
a little backed up. Yeah, the smoke was kind of backed up against the mountain. It's near Palm Springs, so the kind of the air kind of goes between that little valley there with all the big electrical wind whirlers there, that
the wind farms,
the wind farms everywhere. So the air was kind of funky.
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting because we get there and he lives in a moderate sized place, no mansion or anything. We get in there, we go to his record room, which is his office. And you look over to the left and that's his kind of wall of records, and you're like, okay, but then I look over to my right, and what I didn't know is he had a wall of reel-to-reels. And that was the most exciting thing. Ed would take home tapes and kind of work at home. Whether he was listening to them, he was taking rough recording mixes home, and he was kind of mentally game planning how he wanted things to track, how he wanted it to sound. So he had an immense amount of unreleased stuff and rough mixes, outtakes. And I kind of looked over there and I was like, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I'm looking at, Alice Coltrane safety masters, and you're looking at unreleased Alice Coltrane and unreleased Thad Jones, and there's just a slew of stuff there. And it was like, so Ed, are these for sale? And he's like, yeah, I'll sell these. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, good, because I at that point I kind of perused the records, and I was not in love with the records at that point. And then he dropped the bomb on me. But it's going to be whoever buys the records. It's like, okay. So what do you want for the records? And then he gave this like obnoxious price and then like a real low price for the reel-to-reels. So, going through the collection, he had, unfortunately, like all his Alice Coltrane, they were like mint Impulse white label promos, but the bottom 4 inches of the record was in a flood. So the covers were just completely destroyed, but inside the records were just mint white label promos. But then he would have, like, for instance, he had a good chunk of Sun Ra, and not one of those records saw a lick of damage. He had a few things, like maybe 5 or 6 records on Saturn, but we boxed them up and we got out of there. And it was an entertaining deal, and kind of the tapes I'm at this point kind of still working through.
Yeah, well, the best part was these two people with big musical brains, going at it, kind of subtly checking each other out to see who knows the most about what and this, and discussions of kind of blue came up, which Mike thinks is one of the great things, and Ed isn't really that impressed after all these years with kind of blue. And so that was a great part, was just watching and listening to the two of them talk about music and what they liked and what they didn't like, because as you know, Ed, I'm going to say both of these people have opinions, which they're not afraid to express. So that was fun. But no, it was really great. It was really Ed was just a wonderful guy. I was there in the early 70s. I'd gone out to work kind of in the pop department as a regional guy. And then there were some changes, and I ended up working with Steve Backer, who was running Impulse at the time. And Ed was the producer, and Steve was the general manager, I think of. And then he left to go to Novus. Arista Clive Davis came up with a bunch of money and wanted to start his own Impulse, which he did, called Novus. And Steve Backer left to run that. So Ed then was running Impulse, and I became I think it was probably the assistant national promotion director, the national promotion director for a while. But it was a great time, because at that time, Impulse was focusing primarily on college. They had a very heavy presence. So I was spending lots of time calling up college program directors. We had Keith Jarrett and John Clemmer and Dewey Redman and Michael White, and it had a pretty hip Sam Rivers active catalog, in addition to a lot of the repackaging, and they were going for the progressive stations with this, And
so that's kind of where they were.
Yeah, that's where they were at that particular time.
College
when I was there, and then I would kind of tour with. We do shows with acts. We had a John Clemmer and a Keith Jarrett tour that we did on the East Coast and the West Coast. So,
what year
I'd go into Philly, this 74, something like that, 73, 74. And so I go into the town, Philadelphia, and go to the stations and take them records, and maybe have time for dinner with the program director, and then take the music peeps and the record stores too. That was another part of it, to promote in Tower. There were some great stores that were really into it too. So it was really a fun time for a kid from Tempe to be there. And then I would be able to go and see Ed. Ed did a lot of his mixing at the Village, which is still going. It's a very hip studio. And so he would do a lot of his recording there and mixing. And then he was in Quadraphonic too. So he spent a lot of time with that process. So it was fun just to go into the studio and watch Ed work. So we went back that far.
One of the things I kind of discovered from talking to Ed is, even later on when Quadraphonic kind of fell off, and things weren't packaged as Quadraphonic records, a lot of times they were actually encoded Quadraphonic. We were looking at the Warner Brothers tape for Alice Coltrane's Eternity. And, I said in passing, I'm like, no, that's not a Quadraphonic record. He goes, yes, it is. He goes, I mixed that in Quadraphonic. It was only released one way. I'm like, it's not mentioned anywhere on the label that it's Quadraphonic or on the jacket. He's like, no. And then he walks over and pulls off over the safety master and be like, look, it's encoded Quadraphonic. That's the only way it was released. They just didn't advertise it as such.
It was hard because there were several companies. I think it was Sansui. There were several different companies, like always, that are doing the same thing. So not one major thing. So it's hard to get people to get the right system so they can play it, because it's a hardware investment that some people want to make, and some people, I guess, would have. What were the other? Come on, you've got the brain on that. What were the other Quadraphonic systems, mixed systems? Columbia had their own system.
Yeah,
everybody they all had kind of different ways to
CD4, SQ.
To get the same thing done, but
some were discrete, some were.
But it was a hard sell because it was just.
But Ed was a huge fan. One of the things we had talked about was, he had actually told me a story the very first time he had sat down Alice Coltrane for, a reveal of one of her albums in Quadraphonic, and kind of let her listen to that Quadraphonic mix. And he said all the artists loved it. They were really on board. He was really on board, but that was obviously something that was short-lived.
Yeah, but everywhere. Maybe Japan had it they always hang on to things longer than we do. But yeah, it didn't catch on. But anyway, just sitting there, as Mike said, in the studio and hearing the music, you know, and Quadraphonic Sound was a wonderful experience, and working with Ed was great. So as Mike mentioned, I saw him in Hawaii when I was living there, and then it was a nice direct connect. So that's why I wanted to tag along for this.
Yeah, so Johnny, you know, we drove out there together, and I filmed a lot of it, but it's just, you know, I filmed for like 12 hours. But Ed was a little, this was like in the middle of the Corona crisis. Ed was a little bit, you know, he was a little conscious because he's a little older in age, and, you know, he was being cautious. So I wish I had a time to just sit down and put a camera on him. He was very, the stories were nice. You know, he had worked with Van Gelder, didn't have the highest regard for Rudy and his recording tactics, or, you know, his, what's the polite way of putting it?
Well, I mean, everybody's opinion. I mean, you get on that level, and you can't love everybody and like everybody, as many people do. And you know, Van Gelder's kind of a sacred name to some people, and then to other people who have done it and know what's going on, they might have a different opinion, and he certainly did. You know?
He had the different opinion.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool to talk to him, because mentally, musically, he was very into the avant-garde. You know, like I said, he mentioned Miles Davis, and it was like that was a joke pop album for him. And he was about Pharoah Sanders and the Archie Shepp, and the squirrelier the better. And that's where, you know, when we got talking about that, that's kind of when he was like, oh, okay, you know, that was when you can kind of get him to open up, kind of start talking about his experiences, and it was cool. It was a cool experience. I wish I got to film some of it.
So,
but
you owe me for that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
But you know, and I've got a lot. I have kept a lot of cool stuff from the collection. There was a lot of cool Sun Ra. There was a ton of sealed 70s bluesway stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that he was on.
Yeah, that was the other thing, and they were doing bluesways too at the same time, because, you know, record companies kind of got into the point that, especially ABC, because they had their own distributors. So every month they had to come out with a load of records. I mean, that was it. The whole idea there was, how many records can you make? And, oh, let's do a Grassroots Greatest Hits Volume 3. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, that'll be one this month. And so they were doing bluesways, which had been out before when ABC distributed the old ABC. So Ed was a busy boy doing all of that, the Impulse and the Bluesway releases. So it was a fun time as a promo guy to be out there giving away free records of this stuff.
So how many of those free records did you give away to yourself?
Oh, at least one copy, sometimes two. When I first came back, I had a lot of Sun Ra's because I knew, but then over the years, gradually, I sold them off. But I still got a sealed copy of everything and an open copy now. You know, had I known now, because Mikey knows when Sun Ra's weren't really worth the Impulse Sun. The Saturns always have been. That's a different, you know, strata, but which is another great label. But the Impulse Ra's have taken on, you know, a value. They've gone up in value over the years, and I should have, as many of us say, held on to those things for current times. But hey, I got plenty of stuff left, so I'm not complaining. But it was great because hey, they were free, and then I would trade my stuff with the Columbia guy and the RCA guy, and we'd be out in the parking lot somewhere.
We horse swap,
and we'd have our own little swap meet of promo release. You know, oh, Angel, sure, I'll take some of that. You know, I mean, you if you were into music, and all the promo guys, people don't realize, you know, Mikey, there were promo guys living here in town when Tower was going, and when rack jobbing was big in the 70s. You don't. Rack jobbing is in the good old days, like in diamonds and pennies, you know, they would have record departments in there, and those were not run by diamonds or pennies. They were run by rack jobbers who would bid on getting the space. They put in the fixtures, they put all the records in and everything. So So rack jobbing was huge business. I mean, I was here selling Capitol records in the mid 70s. So there was a huge a distributor here called Alta, and they were putting all the records in diamonds and pennies. And it was a wonderful time if you were selling records. And then Tower was like, they were doing huge numbers here. One time they had 4 stores here. So let alone, Circles, there were a lot of other World Records. There were a lot of other kind of small chain independent stores. So it was a great time. So you ran into these other salespeople as you would, go around town and go to the stores, because you'd have to go in and do inventories. You go in and say, hey, you're low on Abbey Road. You want 10 more copies, and you write it up. And so you were constantly trying to get more business in, besides the Steve Miller band that was coming out at the end of the month, and you needed 50 copies or Seeker or whatever it was. So, but it was fun time, Mike. I mean, it was, KDKB was here, man. They were playing the music. Celebrity Theater was going. So it was just a wonderful tie-in of airplay and sales and live music that you and those of you who grew up here will certainly remember that. It was a great time, the 70s, to be a music fan. So do we have questions, Mike?
We got tons of questions.
Oh, I was afraid of that.
So let's see here. What was the difference of opinion he had with RVG? So Ed told me a story. One day he was paying, Van Gelder was, engineering the recording session, and Ed was the producer. And he was doing some work on the on the tape deck, and Rudy didn't want anybody standing behind him. And Ed would tell me, Rudy would go back and he would make some EQ choices in the recording that had to be kind of undone at some point in the process. And that was one of his trade secrets. And Ed was, kind of mentioned like, yeah, I know what the trade secret, I know what's going on, but that was kind of one of the stories.
Well, and it wasn't, what was it, the drums or something? You can't record drum. I mean, there was some instrument that Rudy could not.
Yeah, and Ed, of course, no, he said it was the piano. He mentioned that, if you were a drummer, Rudy was the guy to go to, but there was just certain instruments he was phenomenal at capturing really, really accurately. And even Ed said that, but then there was just some instruments that Rudy just didn't do any justice to. And he kind of brought that to, and I kind of asked him, what do you think the theory was? He said that was just the way he heard it in his head, that was kind of his interpretation of what was going on. Yeah. That was the way in his booth or in his earphones, that's the way he heard it. Yeah. And it sounded good to him.
Well, it sounded like too, there weren't like, Motown producers there, moving knobs and everything constantly. It was just kind of, Tuesday was Prestige Day, and they'd kind of come in and do it. And Rudy knew exactly where to set the mics and how to do this. So it was
mostly him.
Yeah, it was mostly him, right, in charge. Rudy in charge.
So, did you see that video I did on the Electric Recording Company?
The Electric Recording?
Have you heard of the Electric Recording Company?
I have not.
So the Electric Recording Company, I did a video on it. You should watch it.
Yeah,
it's really good. Yeah. So they make limited edition recreations of vinyl records. It is like the Audiophile label out of England. They do 300 copies of each.
Oh, right, yeah.
Super limited. The New York Times did an article write-up on them. Mm-hmm. But they kind of got their start doing like super rare classical records, doing Kogan records and, records that go for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. But they charge £300 a record. And with shipping, it comes out to now about £500. $500 is kind of what it costs to get one of those over here. I did an unboxing of one. I got a copy of one, and I did getting a lot of questions on that. I didn't know if you had seen that yet, or have you even heard about it?
Well, Mike, what is it about
You're not much.
2-inch solid gold speaker wires with you high-end guys that somehow, makes it all the better? And humble little me, if I can just hear it and it's a great mix and it's a clean record and it's a decent system, I'm happy.
That's where
and it seems to me that there's a lot of money being made off of this super high end. And it's wonderful that people are willing to pay $500 for a record. But when I have, for instance, as I mentioned on Facebook, my original mint copy of Otis Blue.
But now, so how was that Otis Blue?
Why would I want to pay for the analog
Okay, so
thing?
Johnny, you're a guy that is not into now, but now you got that Otis Blue. I sold you that Otis Blue 45 RPM.
Yes.
Did you go home and listen to it?
I did.
Did you listen to your original?
No, I probably should.
You probably
but I would
should
just say it wasn't, less, clicks and ticks and pops. That came to mind. But listen, Mikey, if you turn it up. Speaking of which, you sold me that Concord, or what's that amplifier you sold me? It's got no bass or volume knobs on it, man. So you can't enjoy crank. I mean, you guys, you new modernist guys, have taken that thrill. I didn't
design it. I just sold it to you.
I had my great big Kenwood or whatever I had.
And it had a bass and it had a treble knob on it.
And they worked, man. I mean, you could really get there.
The Cambridge you bought had a bass and treble knob.
It's very wussy and it's really small. It's like a straw. The knob, it's like a little straw.
It's minor, like maybe a 2 dB. What do you need? 30 dB bass pump? You want a mixing console? I just want
to hear it. I just want to be able to hear it and enjoy. So anyway, Mike and I have always discussed that fact. But I mean, obviously, sitting here in
the very first time I invited Johnny to Mucho Speakerland, I sat him down. We listened to the Analog Productions Dave Brubeck 45 RPM Timeout, which is one of my top demo records.
Tell me about it.
Johnny sits down and he says, "It sounds too good." Do you remember that? It sounds too good. Something's wrong. It's too good. Yeah. I don't want it to sound this good. So that was Johnny's comment.
Well, you get used to, that makes sense, because I'm used to, to upgrade to all of these. But I mean, it's amazing. Well, you're living proof of it, of all of these re-releases of 40-year-old albums, some famous, many not so famous. And people are willing to pay $24.99, $34.99. And theoretically, they're digging the music as much as I did. Because to me, it's all about the music. I mean, which I know it is with you, but there are just, the levels of money that one feels that you have to invest to hear it. Obviously, anything is much better than earbuds. And that's where we're going, to streaming and earbuds now, Mike, aren't we? I mean,
not at the end group. We're not going
not
there.
at the end group.
At the end group,
let's talk about the other 80% of the masses out there.
Forget about the other 80%. They're irrelevant. Those people are irrelevant, those other people.
And their credit cards are maxed out, too. So that's always a problem when it comes to the record store. But it's just funny. It's just hard for me to go in and you go, 18, I've got that. Feel that you have to.
Some of us weren't horse swapping in the parking lot at Dillard's in 1975 with the promo guys.
Point taken.
So, in 2020, it's a lot harder to get those records.
No, but you've done great. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's amazing as a longtime vinyl junkie. I mean, I don't listen, I don't listen to music on the internet. I mean, I don't. I listen pretty much in my truck when I'm driving around. That's kind of when I listen to the radio anymore. And streaming, it's really hard unless it's unusual for me. And I'm an old man and I'm a dinosaur. I know it. But to sit in front of my computer and click on and listen to somebody. But it's wonderful if you're in Sweden and somebody's going to watch this 4 months from now and say, who are these two weirdos? That it is still there, that I'm of the old school. It's 5 o'clock, AM, FM radio. We're going out. We're going up the old tower and blasting off. I'm here at 5. You're here at 5. Let's have a party. But now, on-demand entertainment, visually and audio, is the way, and I know it, but it's just hard
to grasp
to grasp.
the
Thank
reality
you.
of
The reality.
Yeah.
Well, no, I grasp the reality, but it's just not something I enjoy. But I do enjoy, like you do, dropping a needle on your turntable and listening to something not quite as exotic as Mikey Boy's got here at the compound. But you're right. It's still all about the music, that excitement. Which, yeah. Well, I was going to say this might be a nice place we should answer a few more questions, because obviously these people are going to get mad, Mikey, and not because we're not answering questions. I'm hogging all the time. I bet somebody said that.
Somebody says he doesn't enjoy reality.
Yeah. Reality Ranch. That was one of my monikers in the day.
Back in the day.
No, I enjoy. No, listen, I do. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy it, but I just say people have different parameters of what they need to
enjoy it. Yeah, no, absolutely. Everybody can't be on the crazy end of the spectrum. But both worlds can kind of be bridged, because that's kind of like the project we're working on.
True.
So Johnny contacts me, and this is something that I haven't even mentioned. So we're working on doing a vinyl record together.
Yay!
It's going to be good. So Johnny contacts me, and he, like I said at the beginning of the video, he kind of maintains the Arizona audio recorders archive. And what were you doing? You were kind of digging around. So he has everything that's in his tape vault has been digitized. It was probably digitized.
Most of it.
Most of it was digitized in the 90s. Jack
Miller.
Jack Miller digitized most of it in the 90s. And he kind of has a rough reference to,
what's on the song.
Yeah, he's got this stuff digitized from the 90s. But so he contacts me and says, "Oh, you got to hear this. I found this tape by the Wild Times. Was it labeled the Wild Times?
One of them was.
One of them was labeled the Wild Times, and then some of them were labeled
THYMES.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And some of them were labeled
Richie Hart, The Present Days, DAZE.
This is Richie Hart from
Hart and Candelo. Well, Richie Hart was a teenage heartthrob, originally from Kentucky, and for those of you older folks, you remember his 1961 hit, The Great Dwayne, on Felstead Records, Richie Hart. So Richie worked at audio. He played trombone. He would sit in on sessions. He could type. So he worked in the front office as Richie Hart. And then there were some other groups kind of in between. And then in late 67, early 68, he started to morph into Charlie Gearhart and the Goose Creek Symphony. So this music was done before that. So he is Richie Hart at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we are referring to him, all the notes and the songwriting credits. But the wonderful thing about audio recorders is that there were a lot of things going on in the late mid 60s, 66, 67. A lot more psych music. Mike Candelo was in there. Bill Spooner was in there doing stuff. So there was a lot of free time. Tim Ramsey and a guy named Dave Oxman, who was kind of the midnight engineer. He's the guy he wanted to go in after hours because he was the hip engineer. So they would come in at midnight, and Floyd, his deal was, hey, we'll give you the spec time. If you sell anything, if anything happens, cut us in, or we'll pitch it for you. We'll write the contracts. We'll shop for a deal. But unfortunately, in this case, the music being so great, it never really happened. And the other problem, it really wasn't like an album. There really wasn't a tape you could pull off the shelf and go, oh, the Wild Times, this is great.
There wasn't.
So over the years, I kind of heard this Richie Hart track and that, and then as time went by, I'm kind of looking for more stuff that maybe I can license, because a lot of this stuff is sync license. So it's making money, it's making income off of movies and television and cable and that sort of thing. These same artists and groups from audio recorders. So I'm just looking for more stuff to kind of put in the deal. So when I finally sat down maybe a year ago and started to listen to this song and that song and put it together, I go, wow, these have a very similar feel and sound to them. And then I kind of started paying a little more attention, and there was this Wild Times tape box in there. And I thought, that's a cool name. And the Present Days I knew about because they had a release on Ramco, Silver Threads and Golden Needles, which a little more folky than the stuff that we're talking about. So anyway, I realized, Mike, that I've got about 15, 14, 12, just great songs that when you put them together, it sounds like a cohesive package. So I knew I wanted to do something with it. And partially because of what you've been able to do with your YouTube videos and all of this great vinyl coming out, a lot of it, which was never released at the time, I thought, boy, this would be the ideal time, Mikey, to sink some real money in to putting this together, because it's all about the music for me. And I love the songs. I love the music. And these guys had just done it late at night as a whim. And for whatever reason, nothing was ever done with it. Where, Mike Candelo got a deal on Scepter for phase 1. Bill Spooner made a deal with Cotillion as Warren S. Richardson Jr. So some of that stuff did, come out, but for whatever reason, this just got lost in the fog of history until about a year ago. And you hear these things, you go, is this as good as it sounds? Because I worked for Capitol in the A&R department for a while. I was paid to listen to music, and okay, nah, up, down. So
you pass on anybody too big?
No, I really can't say that I did. I tried to get the Police, but I couldn't because that was a contractual thing. But I when I heard them, I go, I want that. That's great. But they were already under contract to A&M. Anyway,
Capitol. I passed on the Beatles stories for you.
That's good.
Nothing like that you have to live down.
No, I don't. Well, I was doing international A&R. You're getting me off focus, Mike, but that's okay. I was doing international A&R. So basically, my groups were already there. So I had, Kate Bush, Bebop Deluxe, Gentle Giant, Status Quo, Sadistic Mika Band. Bebop Deluxe, I mentioned that. No, I mean, it really just a great roster. Little River Band.
And that was kind of what you were.
You're right. So I was responsible for so I was coordinating between the managers and that sort of stuff. So, but I was getting all these great records. We want to be on Capitol from EMI all over the world because Capitol had the first refusal on any EMI product. So I was building a great personal collection of rejected records over the years, which I still have most of them. But no, anyway, I wasn't like the other A&R guys out looking for new bands and getting a tape and turning it down. So I didn't have that. I didn't have that pressure. But the first Kate Bush album, I was in England and I heard Kate Bush for the first time, and it just blew my mind. I thought, my God, this is absolutely amazing. And it was a label managers meeting, so there were Capitol. There were EMI reps from all over the world. We saw her at the 100 Club, and she was just doing a solo piano thing. And it's one of those moments where you go, oh, man, this is amazing. This is great talent.
This was before or after our record?
Before, long before. So we all got a copy of the tape. EMI UK was responsible, and they were trying to excite all the other labels so they could get it out in as many countries as they could. So I took my little copy of the record back, and had Wuthering Heights on it was the big song, and it was before video, so I had a 16 millimeter film of her out in the heath doing Wuthering Heights, so I would present it to the marketing department, the other people at Capitol as new music, and they didn't buy into it. They just they thought the voice. But in every other country, including Canada, she was huge. When that first album came out, it was great. So that was part of my frustration. That was one that didn't happen, but it wasn't my fault.
Was there any Gilmore involvement at that time?
Absolutely. He was there at the 100 Club, and he was kind of her mentor, and he was the one that brought her to EMI UK at the time. So, he was
at the time
and did the first demos.
You ran in them together.
I'm sorry.
As a pair, they were moving
Well, yeah,
around a
but
lot.
you know, I saw them at the club. Oh, and I was doing Pink Floyd when they're on Harvest too. So, you know, I was doing, but that was kind of a, you know, done. You know, those a lot of times those bigger groups had signed, like, you know, they signed with Columbia or whatever before, you know, or when they had a chance to renew their British deal, they would sign with a different American label. So. But anyway, it was fun days. Anyway, it's all about the music. It's like hearing Wuthering Heights for the first time.
So you assembled these kind of tracks.
Yeah.
Put them all together, so you knew what you had.
Right, but then I go, well, is it as good to me? And so I thought, well, who knows about music? Who would have good ears? And that's when I thought to bring a CD to you of these Wild Times songs for you to listen. And I'll be honest, I thought he'd go, it's okay, you know, okay, nice stuff, you know. Do you want to do it now? Yeah, I'll sell it. But Mikey got the fever too. I mean, I think the music.
So I listened to these tracks, and how many tracks originally were on the CD?
Oh, there were 20 tracks, but there were a lot of them were like present days, they're little folkier things,
stuff.
And but we kind of whittled them down to
there were some
tracks.
Heavy psych tracks on these things. Great fuzz, heavy garage, unbelievable tracks. And I'm like, this is just fantastic. So, excuse me, I call him back up and I said, well, what do we've got as far as, you know, because the CDs that he gave me were essentially just, I mean, they were just quick transfers that Jack was doing in the 90s. Yeah,
they were Pro Tools transfers.
Yeah, like, you know, Pro Tools transfers from the 90s.
And there were some multi-tracks that we just kind of mixed down on the fly.
And it was probably stuff, you know, if Jack was doing these transfers in, say, the late 90s, I'm guessing it was on gear from probably even the mid to early 90s.
91.
Yeah. So 91. So this was kind of at the dawn of so the sound was like, a little bit marginal. I said, you know.
Yeah, to him, that's funny.
To me, it was marginal, yes.
To me, it's the songs.
The music was fantastic.
Right. So that's kind of, we heard it differently, but got the same conclusion.
So we kind of, I told him, I said, let's do this. I said, I'll sell it exclusively on the store, you know, on the web store. I'll talk about it online. This is an unbelievable album, but let's do it the right way. Let's go out and do the full treatment. Let's make it all analog. Let's have a Bernie Grunman do it. Let's keep it analog. Let's do the best tip-on jacket. Let's go all out. Rather than rather than doing just a quick cash grab, quick put it, you know, because we could have just done the original CD the transfer you had on the CD. We could have assembled that and put that on the vinyl.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, in many ways sounded fine to me, but Mike insisted that he could hear things on the Pro Tools on those transfers, and some of it being from the tape, obviously, because tape has its own presents its own audio abnormalities on the spectrum of sound. So and me being a good guy saying, hey man, let's do it. If you want to do it that bad, let's do it right and make this just the greatest record that we can. Because the songs, once again, I mean, I keep coming back to the quality because they're very commercial. They're very, I mean, this album, if it had been released in '68, it would have been, I think it would have been huge, and maybe not because a lot of albums missed. But
if it wasn't huge, it would have been one of those things that flopped horribly and was in the acid archives.
And now would be having a great reappreciation. And Sundays would have put it out like 3 different times.
Yeah, it'd have been $1,000 acid archive, Canelmas type of legendary record.
Right.
But we kind of ran up into some headway because there was no 2-track. There was no assembled 2-track master of this.
Right.
Some stuff was some tracks were on 2 tracks, some stuff were on the original multi-tracks. So we went to
Chris
Marr over there. He runs Welcome to 1979.
8. Is it 9?
78, 79?
In there somewhere.
In there somewhere.
Yeah.
But he's also the Marr Machines. You know, he sells a lot of analog reel-to-reel. So I knew that this would be the guy. So I said to Johnny, I'm like, let's contact Chris. We sent everything over to Chris. Chris, 100% analog, kept everything in the analog domain. Created and
that's
assembled.
A lot of work. That's a lot of work. because at one time he had 3 machines. He had the multi-track, he had the 2-track, and then he had the 2-track that he was making the master tape on.
Correct.
So literally he would have to go back and forth and mix on the fly. And then he did a digital transfer, but it was purely so he could see what was coming up. He would have a visual reference so he would know what to tweak, and we wanted it flat. I mean, we didn't mess with it. So we're going to have a perfectly clean and fresh tape. We didn't mix down to who had the idea of putting, hey, I've got some 30-year-old Scotch tape that's never been used. And Mikey, I don't know if Mikey, you probably put the kibosh on it. Was I the one that said, Mr. Save a Dime? Yeah, well, let's do it. And he goes, no. You need to use brand new tapes. There have been, high-end quality improvements on raw tape. So we did that. We got some tape from, I want to say, ATR Magnetics. I mean, I'm so excited. And then to have Chris, now this is a guy who does this all the time. Mm-hmm. Alec knew him. When I mentioned, he said, oh yeah, I do stuff for all the time. So this guy, Chris Marr, is really a go-to guy for this vintage 60s set, this era of sound. And he called me when he finally transferred everything. And I sent him a CD so he'd have a reference, and told me what great music it was. So I'm going, okay, oh, that's good. It's about the music, and anyone that has heard these songs is just amazed and just blown away.
So I played the CD in the store a few times, and people, it's comical. People are walking around with their cell phone in their hand, trying to Shazam this album that nobody's ever heard. It's never come out. Yeah. And after, and after they realize the Shazam's not working, they kind of come over. So, who's this? I'm like, oh, this is the Wild Times. Well, where can I find that? And it's like, well, that doesn't actually exist yet. We're working on it. But it's a great album, and everybody that's heard it, it's a great album now. We've assembled a track listing. The album now is just going to be spectacular. So we've got the all analog now, 2-track master tape from Chris. And we are going to be sending that off. Bernie Grunman is going to do the final mastering, lacquer cutting.
Sent to.
Then we're pressing it at RTI. We're going to do the full 180-gram RTI.
We've got original artwork. Jeff Nagy at Nile Graphics has been such a dear friend and helped me over the years on all my projects. And he just jumped into this, the same thing. I sent him a CD.
People hear the music and want to be involved.
And they get inspired for whatever they are. So he has come up with wonderful original drawing artwork that we're going to use on this for our tip-on jackets. And
and that's another thing. So Bernie's going to do the mastering on this. Stoughton's doing the jackets. We're doing 1,000 copies. These are all going to be numbered. This is on the highest quality jacket they make, the best jacket they make. They're all going to be numbered. We're going to do 1,000 copies on purple vinyl, exclusively sold at theingroove.com. And yeah, it's great. So we're going to probably have Johnny back maybe in a month or so, and I'll announce kind of a pre-order on the website. We're going to release a song from it and kind of preview the album, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be an absolute, it's a psych fuzz monster for sure.
But for me, it's always been about music. I've been a lucky guy to come out of Tempe and always been involved in music. And I will be honest that in many ways I've lost my religion in music. I just don't get that excited. I haven't done a radio show in months and months because, it's all about feeling and spirit. But this thing, I'm so happy to be able to finally get this out right. And we're doing it in a style that it would have come out in 68, 69. Charlie Gearhart, bless his heart, is still with us. Bob Nisley, who played guitar, they were in Richie Hart and the Heartbeats. And Dennis Kenmore, a lot of you know Dennis, a studio drummer. He was in Pollution. He was in Care Package. He was the original drummer in Goose Creek Symphony. So Dennis is still in LA, and just wonderful memories of the time and the scene here in Phoenix. Mike Candelo is involved. I mean, he He obviously is there. Steve Foreman. There's some chimes and percussion elements on this. So the Phoenix Symphony kept all of their instruments at audio. They had that huge studio to record the symphony in. So they kept all their instruments in a storage room, which Tim Ramsey had the key to. So whenever any band needed a kettle drum or a chime or whatever they needed, a xylophone, they'd go in there and pull it out. So Steve Foreman is on this, and he's gone on to just great fame as a first call percussionist. So many of the people that were there are here. And in a way, Charlie, who it's really his idea. I mean, he was the main focal point and wrote the songwriter along with Bob Nisley, co-wrote some of the songs. They really, I think are kind of bemused as I guess any musician would do that, 45 years after the fact or whatever it's been, suddenly this music that they kind of, because Charlie had a great career with Goose Creek. I mean, he toured for years and they made, 10 albums, more than that probably with the stuff on his own label. So I'm getting them excited and they are appreciating this because the thought that this just would have sat on a shelf and maybe, I would have pulled a track off for some CD or something of obscure garage band things or something to be able to present it as an album in the form that even nobody at the time envisioned, but with time on our side.
But it works very cohesively as an album. It's not there. So the original 20 tracks that he sent me on the CD, there was some stuff that would have not. There was some folky tracks. There was some stuff that were really out of left field.
Same group of people.
More
mellow,
wildly different
type
music.
Yeah.
But there was a very cohesive amount of psychedelic guitar fuzz tracks in there that just formed a fantastic album. But we tried to do it in this is the absolute best that it can be done today or would have been able to be done back then. I mean, we didn't cut any corners on this. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, I'm looking forward to showing you guys the artwork in the future. I'm thinking probably in about a month from now, we'll come back on. We'll show the artwork. Maybe we'll preview a track, and then I think we're going to take pre-orders for it. But it's going to be cool. It's going to be 1,000 copies on purple vinyl. The overall artwork kind of has a very purple vibe to it, so it's a real nice match. But again, it's one of those albums that had been released in 1968. It would have either done really good or it would have flopped, and it would be, it'd be one of those Asset Archives $1,000 records for sure. It's great. There's not, and it's a great, unlike a lot of psych records too, and that's kind of the thing with a lot of psych records. A lot of great psych records that go for big money, maybe they have 1 or 2 or 3 strong tracks on it. This is really solid through and through. I mean, this is more along the lines of some of those psych records that go for thousands of dollars that just sound killer from front to back.
Yeah, and just the fact that it wasn't like in the good old days you knew you had a deal. You signed with Columbia and you had a budget of $10,000 and you went in based on your demos and you did this. These guys were just kind of doing it on the fly every night. After midnight they'd sneak in, put this thing together, and with one exception, nobody outside of the studio ever heard any of the music, and that's what's so amazing that we're going to be able to put this together and kind of launch a lost musical gem on the world.
So some people commented. We
should do some questions here.
We're going to do some questions. Some people commented that why are we only doing 1,000? Well, that's because that's what we're doing. It's not going to be it's not going to be a $100 record like the Rolling Stones Let It Bleed for Black Friday. It is going to be.
You didn't like that, did you, Mike? I did see.
Did you see that video?
I saw that review.
What'd you think of that record for $100? I missed the
other one on the other label.
What'd you think of that for $100?
I'm going to take your word for it. I don't care about the music, so.
Not a big Rolling Stones fan?
I am. Early Decca stuff, but
Give Me Shelter. That's not for you.
Yeah. Well, some of that.
How about $100 for a record in a thin, crappy paper sleeve?
I know. Well, see, but that's kind of what's been created. Suddenly there's all these people like, a lot of well, let's just stick it in there. Let's just put it out. They'll never, they'll want it, and we'll only make we're just going to make 1,000 instead of, making 10,000 and pricing it at what, $20, $24. We're going to go the other way and make the same package, the $20 package. But that's, but it's gone now, right? It's out of print now, right?
It's like $400 now on eBay on the secondary market.
Yeah.
They did 900 of them, although some numbers above 900 have turned up. I don't know what's going on there.
Wow.
But
like the Beatles' #1, the White Album.
Yes, there was
a few extra
5 or 6 number ones of the Beatles' White Album.
Something like that.
Given out of capital. So we're going to do 1,000 because it's, it's a record to keep this in mind, that something that I'm selling exclusively on the store. So it's not like it's going to be, it's not the Rolling Stones. Not everybody in the world knows, who the Wild Times are.
They will, Mikey. They will. We're going to
break it
this time. Yeah, we should do some questions.
We're doing questions.
I just talked, but look at all of them.
We got to get some questions.
Get a myriad.
Apparently, there's some people fighting. So
a cornucopia fighting about
the
what?
peeps are going back and forth. It would seem.
Oh, about the quality of the stream tonight?
About each other, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Let's see. We're digging for questions.
Do you realize, man, we're in December, dude? Do you realize that this year is it's. Thank God, but I mean, the time is just.
Is this like a lost
amazing.
Year?
Yeah.
It's kind of like John Lennon had that lost summer. We kind of had a lost year.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
2020 has just been.
Wow, how the time flies. I'm saying that as an old man, that I find that
you want it to slow down a little bit. At this point in time.
I mean, I got things to do. I mean, this Wild Times thing, that's great. I got to get back in the archive and start sniffing around to see if there's anything else in there that might deserve a reissue. Oh, speaking of which, wow, look at all these.
What do you want to
go there? No, nothing, man. I just brought a few of my.
So Johnny, for years and years, has put out. We got a local bin in the store, and Johnny, for years and years and years, has put out Arizona music and a lot of it.
It's absolutely amazing, Mike.
Why do you still have it after all these years?
Well, you have to have a copy of your own, and then some of them are out of print. And then many of them are out of print now. But, I sit around at the Bend Over World headquarters in Scottsdale, musing about life and things. And I keep going, I'm not doing enough of this stuff, because I do a year-end Christmas letter. And then I list, my releases that I put out. And sometimes I think, 3 releases this year. Man, I haven't really done, I haven't done anything. But, when I pull out everything over the course of the 30 years now that I've been involved with this, and sometimes it's only getting people together, sometimes it's a picture on an album, but just stuff that I've been involved with, all the way to stuff that I've completely put together or put together for Bear Family, for instance, or Sundays, some of the other reissue labels over the years. And when I can finally put everything together, which I really did tonight, Mikey, to come over and visit with you and your audience.
Look at that massive quantity.
Man, I haven't done that bad. I mean, it's more about, I feel much better that when I'm long gone and doing my dirt sleep, as Lee Hazelwood called it, dirt nap, I think he called it.
Dirt nap.
There will be stuff that will live on in the 99-cent bins.
What is
we're just all over the world, man.
For somebody to discover in the future?
Yeah, but it'll be there, and maybe read a note and, learn something about Donnie Owens or, Flagpole Rock, Long John Roller.
Yeah.
They'll go, wow, he sat on top of a flagpole for 264 days. What kind of a nut does this, man? So, I mean, it's
and no internet.
It's no
internet. Cell phone.
Yeah, but he was on K-Hat Radio every 5 minutes. Hi, Long John Roller. I'm here. I'm broadcasting.
What did he get for
Reed Mullen Ford? Well, I think he got the Ford. I think he got the car, and then he had to sell it because, and he got his radio. I'm sure he got his money as being a K-Hat DJ.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. If you spotted Long John on the ground, you would get $100, I think, or $1,000 if you spot, Long John, which meant, somebody had to deal with the residue, shall we say, from being up there in the car. He had a cat. He had a little cat. He had a guitar.
So
and then Corky, then Al Casey and Corky Casey actually went up in this car. This would be an ocean nightmare, right? They had a pulley that was welded to the rear bumper, right?
Mhm.
You dig this with a little chair, a little metal chair. So they would attach a rope to a car that would drive down the row of cars and would lift the person up to the trunk. And they'd have to get out, crawl in the trunk and underneath the back seat, because he had a little
And if the
deck
rope
there
snapped,
and oh my, that's what I'm saying. So there's Al and Corky, and they were actually up there with their instruments. Jack Miller was down on the ground with the tape recorder, and they recorded Flagpole Rock on Flagpole Records.
Mhm.
And then you could go down there, and I think for $1, yeah, you'd yell at him, and you'd stick a dollar in the bucket, and he'd send you a record down. And he sold those records from his Ford Fairlane above the parking lot there.
so they cut the record in the car,
Yeah, cut the tape. Yeah.
Cut the-
Went to
yeah.
Wakefield, buzzed over to Wakefield.
press the
Got
mouse.
him
How long do you
pressed
think
up.
the turnaround time on that was
That's
back
a
then?
great question in those days, Mike.
Because nowadays
Lord
it's just
knows.
months and months
But
and months
they
to get
didn't.
a
The
record
good thing
cut.
was they didn't spend any time on the label. The design of the label. It's pretty basic. That helps. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll just do it at font. And I think Arrowhead Printing, or there was some printing plant here that would do the labels for Wakefield. And then, he had them there, and he had, his box of records there up, and he'd sell them from his perch.
And how many
high above
records do you
Central.
think he sold from that perch?
I don't know, 300, 500 maybe. There aren't that many. So I would guess, maybe, and that had to be, 300 records had to be a big investment, Lord knows at the time. But no, that's just another part of Arizona's musical history here that
What is your favorite? What is your
over the
favorite
years. Don't
release
ask
that
me
you've done? Why can't
Don't
I ask you
me
that? It seems like you
Don't
should be
ask
able
me
to
that.
pick a favorite.
Wow.
And keep in mind, all the lesser titles are going to be offended by your choice.
They've all been disappointment. They've all been disappointments. For instance, I thought this one, the Beans. I thought this would be a slam dunk. Okay,
So,
the Beans.
This
right?
is actually kind of interesting. So this is who pressed the cover?
The guy from Bruce from Project, Independent Project Pressing Plants.
So this was
Bruce
all
Lecter,
done
Bruce
old
Lecter.
school.
Old school on the presses, that one at a time.
One at a time.
One color at a time, and they've done old school. He's done covers like this for
That is
for
very
many,
kind of
many
similar
groups
to
over
what
the years.
ERC does that we talked about, that $400,
Oh, okay.
$450.
Got it.
They kind of
Yeah.
go back and they
Yeah.
recreate
Yeah.
the old block letter presses.
Yeah,
Offset type, is that
yeah.
offset
So
type
he's
press?
done it for a lot of punk groups, and
Uh-huh.
I think Rhino paid him to do some, $5,000 for one of their groups, years ago. And he was up in Sedona for quite a few years. Bruce
Mhm.
was up there, and he'd come to the Phoenix record shows, and he would sell his CDs. He had he had his own group, and so anyway. I said to myself, as I do, I've always wanted to do something with him. Well, he moved over to California, moved all his presses over there. And I came up with this wild idea similar to the Wild Times, thinking, God, the music is so great. If I could I'm going to spend the money. So I spent a lot of money. I mean, this is an amazing cover. It's beautiful. I folded them all myself.
All by
I
hand.
hand folded. There's a wonderful insert in there. I had the records pressed at Bill Smith, and he's gone now because United, I think, bought his pressers and they moved them to Nashville. But I drove over to his place there, and I forget, El Segundo or wherever he was, and picked the records up, and then I put them in here, and then I got a little sticker here that I hand numbered, and I thought, the Tubes, they've got a big name.
Big following. You thought you saw dollar signs.
Not really. No, I
You
just
saw
if I
broke
can break,
even.
Mikey, if I can break even, so 500. I mean, couldn't you think anything would do 500? Well, so then, I hope I'm not boring the folks. So I call Spooner, as you do with many musicians, and whom I've been lucky enough to work with. So I called Spooner and go, Bill, because I've had this song that he did as the Beans called Come and See Me. I just loved it. I heard it many years ago. It never came out. It was on a tape that I got that I've had in my archive. And then KDKB used to play the Beans, and they played two songs. They played Crazy About Your Daisy and Empty Shoes that they recorded in San Francisco. They sent a tape to KDKB, And being a Vietnam veteran, Empty Shoes really, when I heard that on KDKB.
Was there ever a release of that?
Never,
just
ever,
the
ever.
tape.
Might have been squirreled out on a cassette bootleg or something, but never Come and See Me, and never in this, this beautiful packaging, lovingly
Kind of
put together.
out.
Oh, it's beautiful, man. I mean, just the artwork alone. So we've got an insert with the story. Anyway, man, I haven't sold 120 of these, maybe. I've still got a stack of the covers that I thought someday I might as well fold them. But, as things go, this was a disappointment. I didn't finish my story, so I called Spooner. Bill, it's John Dixon. How you doing, man? Yeah, good. Okay. So I asked him, hey, Bill, come and see me. I've got this idea for some reason I wanted to do a 10-inch, 3-song. Don't ask me why. 3-song, 10-inch, and then I want to put Empty Shoes, and then I want to put Crazy About Your Daisy because I love them. KDKB, early 70s. Okay, yeah, okay. Well, I've got some other songs, man. And I go, no, Come and See Me is so appealing. It's just it's just a teen angst song. And he said that he remembered writing it up in a treehouse when they were living like off of 48th Street or something like that as the Beans. And so, as happens many times, my enthusiasm was not his enthusiasm. And as it turns out, it wasn't the public's enthusiasm. But they're still available on eBay right now at the Bendover store. So if you feel that this story has got any interest to you, but the bottom line, the music is great, man. And it's pre-tubes. Who would want anything more? So
what do you think now? Somebody asked earlier, why are we only doing 1,000 records of the Wild Times? What do you think you lost on the Beans? How much money do you think you've... Think about that. Search deep in yourself.
I don't. I mean,
come to reality. Come to terms.
Listen, it's all nebulous, Mikey. Because
this is kind of a good answer to the other person's question.
but it's part of what I do.
I understand.
That Floyd and Mary Ramsey sold me audio recorders assets, masters and publishing. That I've been very blessed to make a nice no hits, but it's great music that continues to get licensed with my friends at Fervor Records. It continues to give back. And so part of my mission is to try and find things and just tell the story of the Phoenix music scene. So I can I'm lucky enough to afford losing a few bucks and just to get this out. And the bottom line, I'm proud of it. And once again, everybody that got a copy went, wow, this is great.
I still have it in the store. It still sells. Maybe 1 or 2 copies a year. Yeah.
So that's not really, kids, if you want to get in the music business, go for current groups with a YouTube video dancing. That'll help you because there's no video,
there's nobody dancing in bikinis.
There's nobody dancing. There's nobody on who's behind the mask. I got a new record out. You don't have that kind of a platform. So
that's a problem.
So that's a problem. But
so that's kind of on the less successful side. What's been the most successful release you've done?
Well,
it's so successful you don't have it?
Well, no. That's one of my recent ones, as a matter of fact. Let me find that for you, Mike.
Are we talking about the
fiddle music?
The fiddle.
This is the weirdest thing, man. Who knew? So among the stuff, here it is. This Arizona fiddle music, disregard the price tag. Don't mind. Excuse me. I had these acetates that Clay Ramsey, Floyd Ramsey's dad, had in the square dance. Floyd's dad, Clay, had a square dance label called Old Timer, and it was one of the first square dance labels in the country. And he also had a building. He had a barn. It was called the Old Timers Barn out on McDowell. McDowell west of Grand Avenue was called Christie in the day. It was Christie. So the barn was off there kind of on the north side of the road, like an octagon with flaps on it with a stage. And I think it was definitely every Saturday, but maybe Thursday nights, they would have dances there, no alcohol.
Why not?
And because we don't want that kind of people involved with square dancing, Mikey. These
Just
are
the most
these are
fine, upstanding.
That's
folk.
what parking lots are for, Mikey. You go out in the parking lot, you do your business out there,
but not while square dancing.
So Clay had this old timers, and so they started there in the late 40s, and then he realized that there were all these clubs in Arizona and then around the country that wanted the music. They couldn't hire a band, but they wanted records to play. So, and I don't know if Clay came up with the idea of putting the calls and the music on one side, and then just the music on the other side with the calls printed out. So you, Mike, could be. I mean, this is pre-rapping.
Yes.
This is pre-rapping music.
Could rap
you
over
would rap over
exactly.
the records, and so they started this
label,
Old Timer, that morphed into Liberty Bell, that morphed into Ramco and the studio and everything. So anyway, in some boxes, I've discovered a lot of things kind of later on that I just kind of put on the shelf at the time. Last year, I had these acetates with just scribbling of names, grease pen. They didn't even have labels on the acetates. They just had some names. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to get them transferred. So I went to my musical guru, the smoking man, Bruce Cannell, who is my new Jack Miller. And he does.
So Bruce Cannell, you shouldn't really gloss over Bruce.
I don't want to gloss over anyone, Mike.
Don't gloss over Bruce. Bruce is a legendary.
He's a legendary guy. So he's my pal.
You're transferring
the Jetsons, Billy Clonan, the same. The Revenants, on and on. I mean,
you did an album 45 with him.
We did. Well, that was another painful thing, Mike. I hope you wouldn't bring up, but yeah. As a matter of fact, we have that here. Suicide Kings, which is Bruce and John Rawhouse and some other great players.
Played at your birthday party.
Once again, I did, and once again pressed up, I think 500, and haven't even sold 100. And the music is so great. And then we covered Arizona songs, relatable.
But you know the good things about all these releases?
What is that?
Don't
Mike?
sell.
What is that, Mike?
You eventually give them away at your birthday party.
I do.
Grab bag.
I do, and they end up at his store. And so it's really funny.
As trade-ins.
He can tell when I've had a birthday party because all of these spiders on Mascot show up at his
they just
store.
Swing back in.
There.
I've got records to sell.
My God, I've got 25 of these. Anyway, you're interrupting my flow.
I'm sorry.
So I decided, Bruce, transfer these acetates, and they're basically fiddle and square dance music, string band music. That weren't necessarily square dances because they have to be timed out about 4 minutes. You have to do a certain amount of do-si-dos and all that stuff. So I transfer them. I listen to them. Hey, they sound great, fiddle music. Well, another friend, Joe Baker, I sent him one because he's a fan of this. He's the guy who's into Liberty Bell and Dash and all of the Arizona, Western Jubilee, all the square dance labels. So I gave Joe, and I gave it to Al Perry, my buddy down south, Mr. Al Perry. So Al sent it to Joe, and Joe goes, Eck Robertson, man, that guy's great, man. He's one of the best fiddle players in the country. Well, come to find out, Eck Robertson, Texas fiddle player, was on one of these acetates, and Clay or whomever put X Robertson. That's all that was on the label, and there were 3 songs. So anyway, I put this together mainly as a tribute to Joe and just Arizona music. I love doing the 40s and that era of music that gets very Arizona music.
But this is kind of comical because this is something unlike the
comical.
Well, no, what's comical about this is unlike the Beans, this is something that you kind of smack together. We've got We've got a thin paper CD, guys.
This isn't. Can say it's done at disc makers, man.
No, I mean, but this is just
dude.
It's a CD.
Well, there's only so much story because nobody really knows that much. But they're
the amount of effort that was put into the Beans versus
at my age,
this plastic circle.
Lesson learned. Okay,
but that's what's comical.
No,
so right when he started selling this CD was actually when we were going to Ed Michel's.
Okay.
Do you remember? It was that week. And I remember you were getting so excited because your little eBay app kept dinging. So all the way,
that's right.
All the way to California, he's just, oh my God, I'm selling so much fiddle music. This is amazing. Ding, ding, ding.
Ka-ching,
Apparently, it went into some fiddle music.
Well, Joe knows. Yeah, there are clubs. There are fiddle music clubs, and I must tell you that I think I might have. I think I did maybe 300. So I mean, the cost wasn't. I mean.
You wanted to get the music out.
Yeah. I want to get the music out a nice way, tell the story. It's an archive of Arizona music that will live on. And Eck Robertson, turns out, was very, very under-recorded.
Yes,
he made some Victor recordings in the 20s.
He's like the Robert Johnson of fiddle music. He's the
first credited, I want to say, Western performer. He doesn't sing, but so he is an early Victor recording artist. He did some stuff in the 60s. And then I have these 3 songs that Joe Baker hit me to. So I must say, Mike, that this particular release is very close to breaking even, ladies and gentlemen. And you can help right now by purchasing your copy on eBay right now. Go to it, look for it, Arizona Fiddle Music.
Fiddle music.
You won't be disappointed.
Now, let me ask you, are you a big fiddle music fan? Do you listen to that?
Mike, I appreciate music of all kinds.
Have you listened to that in your car?
I have.
You have?
Of course, because you have to listen to make sure that all the numbers work right and the songs are in order.
Have you listened to it twice in your car?
I probably have.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to know more. I mean, Carl Griswold. Do you know about Carl Griswold?
I have not a clue about Carl Griswold.
Do you know about Ardell Christopher, another fine fiddler from Texas?
I don't know anything about
Clarence Fenwick. Well, they're right here, Mike. So that's what I'm here for. To kind of, and really, chuckles aside, I think that, Clay, there must have been for all these people to be in the same town at the same time is very unusual. So I'm thinking there must have been like a square dance festival or something. Clay and Floyd had this new lathe set up in their bedroom to record bands at this, well, it wasn't, they bought a house to sell from. So people would go over to the house and make recordings. They would drop, they have blanks and you'd pay them, but it was a one-of-a-kind thing. It wasn't like you could make a duplicate. You only had the one lathe.
So do you think some people took some stuff with them? And
no, I don't. I think they just listened to it and left it there. Luckily for me, and they were in those boxes that I got from Clay Ramsey. Are they going to sleep now?
No, not yet.
All right.
So we've got some questions.
Oh, here's another one. That's a recent one.
That has actually been really popular. Light at the Attic put that out.
They did. It's been very.
That has been very popular.
I was very involved with
It's sold out, right? This is a.
I don't know what the vinyl. I think the vinyl is. It might be.
I don't think
because
you
all
can
these
get that
do
anymore.
very, very well. Like our Wild Times is going to do.
But our Wild Times is on another level.
Are we going to do one of these things?
No, we're not going to do an Obi.
Why not?
Were you buying any records with Obies in the 60s?
Of course. Who cared? You'd rip them off.
There was Obies on what record in the 60s?
Oh, I know, from Japan.
We're not. This is an American band.
Okay, all right.
This isn't the flower traveling
Light
band.
in the Attic does it all the time. It's standard operating procedure.
This isn't Light in the Attic. This is the In Groove / Bend Over Inc.
Okay.
We don't have Obies. We're doing.
Oh! I want to mention Eddie and Ernie while I have this time. Arizona's greatest soul duo.
We did have soul in the desert.
Mississippi Records put this out. It's wonderful. Also available from Johnny D and a few other places. But it's great soul. Eddie and Ernie, man. Just they wrote their own music, unlike Sam and Dave, who were much more successful. Eddie and Ernie were the real deal, and they came from the desert.
So somebody wants to know when you're having your next birthday party.
That's a good question. Well, technically, it would be in May of next year, but that's good because the birthday parties, they just want the free Spiders records, I think.
They are asking about tickets.
CDs.
They're wanting to know about free beans and Fiddle CDs.
Oh, man. Yeah. I wish. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know that it's going to.
Because it was an event.
No, my 50th was too, that we did at the Rockin' Horse, man. I had Al Casey. I had the reunion of the Vibratos. I had Ted Newman. I had Frank Fafara. I had Dr. Love. Forget his. Anyway, I had quite a few real performers from the 60s. And then the reunion of the Vibratos, who nobody had ever heard.
That's significantly more impressive than my trip to Carrabba's for my birthday.
Well, it was. But the problem is, as was my 70th, where I had Noonie Ricketts. So I had a group booked to back them, like a horn group booked to back them. They had a medical problem at the time. So my buddy Noonie, which is another one of my favorites, as long as we're here, Noonie Rickett live at the Red Dog is great. Anyway, Noonie was a dear friend, played the Red Dog. And Noonie is like a kind of a white James Brown who plays guitar. Or remind me to tell you my James Brown story. That's one of my evening stories. Anyway, Noonie, what have I gone? I've lost.
We're talking about Noonie coming to the 70th birthday party.
I booked him, and he used to play at the Ramada in where's the place on the Colorado River? You know,
isn't he from he's in Kingman, right?
The riverboat. Yeah, he lives there, but he was playing at the Laughlin. So he was playing at Laughlin at the Ramada for years. A group called Four of a Kind. Then he kind of retired, and they changed the format, got rid of the band. So he hadn't played in a couple of years. So I talked him into coming down. The band falls out. I put together with my friend Clark Rigsby came through, and we put together a great band. And they played great at my birthday party. And Smite played there. Degentrification. I had a puppet show. And the puppet show. The Suicide Kings played live at my show. Were you there for the whole thing, Mikey?
Yeah.
You didn't know? Oh, okay, that's great.
I was there.
Together that long.
You were very hopping and popping.
Well, that's the point.
You were.
I'm telling you, I can't enjoy it because I tried to get a production manager for it.
So you could relax.
So I could relax, and I couldn't. They were all working. Johnny, we want to do it. So long story short, I don't know if there's going to be, it might be, a get together at Long Longs with masks, open bar. But I always try and do good stuff.
Probably be vaccinated by, May.
I hope so. No, it would be wonderful because it's fun, man. I mean, and people have such a great time, and I love. I mean, I've always
set up the camera.
And
the photo booth.
The Sugar Thieves played also.
Yes.
They were the kind of the headliners. Well, that depends. But they were. It was a great evening of music. I was really happy to do it.
Yeah.
But it'll be May if it happens, and so check it out. You might get a complimentary fiddle.
Get some fiddle music and some.
Good. You might get another Spiders. Take it to Mike's. He pays top money.
I don't need any more Spider reissues.
Yeah, why not?
How many Spiders do you? That was.
I did a thought. Well, that was in the optimistic days. So I go, Alice Cooper. Oh my God,
yeah, so
this is going to be.
For you guys
great.
who don't know, Alice Cooper's very first band in Phoenix, Arizona, was the Spiders. Very first recorded music he had was on Mascot. Maybe 4 of these originals exist. Probably would go for $10,000 if you could find an original. Johnny actually has one. I fondled it a little bit, but the rarest of the rare. So nobody owns one of these things. He's like, let's do a reissue of it. And he had high hopes. He thought it would be a home run.
Licensed it properly.
Licensed it. You did the whole 9 yards.
Master
you pressed
tape.
1,000. What do you got about
tape.
master tape? What do you got about 900 of them in your garage?
No, not that many. We've probably done over 500. But that was 10 years ago. That was a long, long time ago. But that was another slam dunk, my guy. I thought, oh man, So I've learned early on, like people appreciating music, for instance, Arizona music. Most people don't care. It's a hard pill to swallow because you like it so much. You know about it so much.
People? Yeah.
Well, it's just
why aren't they getting it?
I know, but it's something that you just have to learn, maybe not accept. But I have. So now, as in the fiddle music, I did 300 of those. But I've already sold about 125, so I'm close to getting my investment back, which is mind-boggling. So that's another thing. You just never know what kind of music.
Well, I think the Wild Times, though, the local connection aside, the Wild Times is going to have for those psych and garage guys.
Well, and there's a huge all the ugly things, fans and subscribers to that music, and there are European, websites and DJs that love this stuff, this psych. And so I know that they'll get it well. I don't know. I never assume anything. But from what I've seen, they're really going to enjoy it. They'll be very surprised with the quality of it.
The word will get out. Let's take some questions. Somebody wants to know if you did the brown acid at Woodstock.
No, I didn't make
Didn't make Woodstock.
and I'll be honest. I think I've tried acid once in my life. I'm a very slow, dull beginner. Mushrooms maybe, but so no.
Bah.
That's hey, can I tell you something else, Mike? Listen, I'm going because evidently we can have up to 2 hours. So look at this, Mike. You see
This
this?
is the yes.
This
I've
is
seen
one
that
of the
for
great
years.
Johnny. Yeah, this is one of the great Johnny scams of all time. So Dwayne Eddy is very, very close. It's a big deal.
Mhm.
Long deal. So this is a rare 78 on Old Timer, which is the Square Dance label, which is even funnier, of a song called Hound Dog Hop by Dwayne and Al. Theoretically, Dwayne Eddy and Al Casey, and it's on a real record. It's a real label. It's got like it came from a radio station.
Yeah.
So it's got the radio station thing and a real sticker, real sticker with the number on the label. So
It's an authentic.
I had a friend, George Gamarick. Yeah, my buddy George Gamarick. Austin was a big deal in the day. I mean, it was the biggest record show twice a year. Every record nut from all over the world would show up there. It was a wonderful experience. So my friend George Gamarick had taken a Motown record and made a Motown 78 out of some record, just reproduced the label, and people went nuts. He just stuck it on the back, on his display there and acted like it was no big deal. And people were going crazy because there never was here in the United States a Motown 78. I don't know. It might have been Money or one of the really early numbers, 78. So I said, George, man, this is great because the British they're really into Dwayne Eddy. They're really there's a convention, still is. He's over there. So I thought, listen, man, why don't you do would you do me let's do a Square Dance one. And so this is like a make-believe record of Dwayne and Al. It's got the writing credits on everything, rare Dwayne bits. So I just took it to Austin and stuck it up on my display case. I still do have the
back
thing, but
wall.
like 4-wall, the back wall. A lot of people do.
The good records go on the back wall.
Go on the back wall. So a lot of people have that there. So I set that up there. People were going nuts trying, and I'm going, well, I don't know if I want to sell it, because it's the only copy, and I try and keep all my stuff because, but the price is right, and my God, and then so
were they taking it? Were they inspecting it?
Oh yeah, well, here like this. I kind of, and you could pull it out, and it's some 70. Yeah, look at that, man. Does it have it? Yeah, it's got a flip side. Look at that, nice and shiny, but it's some other Western Jubilee or some Square Dance record. So he made those labels, and I had a lot of fun with that, man, because people are so, crazy about their Dwayne, but he did such a great job.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's
absolutely.
actually glued that on for me. And so I took it, a couple years, and then.
So do you remember what was your top money offer?
Well, $1,000. I put bids.
Oh yeah.
I wrote
Okay. So you wrote $1,000.
I got
$1,000
bid, right? And I go, well, I'm at 1,000. Maybe I can get a little more. But that's one of my fun pieces that I've had over the years. But I'm sure we're getting many questions.
We are. So let's see.
Time up yet?
Any teasers for upcoming shootout videos? God,
Shootout. What's that?
You don't watch the Mike Ingroove YouTube show, do you?
I do. I watched the Thursday. What are the shootouts?
This is like when I did the shootout with the Fleetwood Mac Rumors.
Oh, I guess I missed that.
No, you didn't miss it because you contacted Ken.
Shootout. You mean your opinion?
My
review.
My reviews.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's actually kind of interesting. So, and I that's a kind of good thing to mention. So I did the Fleetwood Mac Rumors shootout, and you worked at Capitol and you knew Ken
Perry.
So you actually contact Ken Perry, and I kind of talk about him a little bit on the Rumors shootout, but you had emailed him the video, and he kind of commented back. Do you remember the comments?
I don't, but he talks about it was mastering craziness.
He kind of actually
they were just constantly, because he had to send them to different pressing plants. So they were, doing the tapes, queuing them back up again, and he had 2 lathes, so he could cut 2. They could cut 2 at a time.
So Ken actually had mentioned. So Johnny emails him the video. I'm assuming he watches the video. Emails Johnny, and I talk about how it's kind of awkward. How some of them are really, really good, and some of them aren't as good. But kind of Ken confirmed that earlier on, those are kind of the masterings that you want to seek out, because as it got crazy and as the album kind of just blew up,
and the tape was getting so they had to make a copy.
Correct. The tape ended up getting worn out. Right. Then they had to make a copy of it. He was just nonstop master. So it kind of got, I don't want to say sloppy at the end, but the earlier cuttings were kind of.
There are people that do that, don't you? You mentioned what is that called, where they go out and find the very first pressing, like that's and you pay people to do that, to find that.
So there's a guy that doesn't necessarily find the first pressing. He listens to a bunch of pressings. He'll buy 800 copies of Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass,
right?
Whipped Cream and Other Delights. He'll listen to a bunch of them, and then he'll sell you the best one for $1,000.
Oh, I thought he could determine what the first stamp, the first run off the stamp.
A lot of that can kind of be determined by the dead wax.
By the dead wax, right. But then you want
There's always variations in the dead wax. So regardless of, there's always variations even with the same exact dead wax because of conditions that aren't visible on the outer or on the dead wax. The plant it was made at, how was the temperature of the boiler? Was it at the end of the stamp, or was it at the beginning of the stamp, or was it at the sweet spot? So there's always those things that.
Don't mind me.
Yeah. What are you, Vanna White over here?
I'm doing stuff.
Pitching.
I'm doing stuff.
So there's always variables that aren't always identifiable. So there is people that attempt to quantify those variables.
Here's one that we did, recently that did very well. That's now out of print.
This was actually
so most of them are from Europe now because they shipped, I think, 300 copies.
I got some of these. I sold quite a few of these. I showed these in a video months and months ago.
This is so these are some Ramco masters that Zia decided to put together for Record Store Day, and including Chuck Womack and the Sweet Souls Ham Hocks and Beans that Mike has got some copies of that 45.
So that was our first project that I kind of said, let's do this.
Yeah.
Ham Hocks and Beans.
Did you learn a lesson from that?
Well, I still have high hopes for Chuck Womack because I have 500 of them in the back room.
I know. I was fun. Who pressed this for us? Was it
United?
We
had a very difficult time finding. 45.
No, this is great. Hey, Chuck. Well, he was living when we started this, and unfortunately it passed away. But we licensed it from his wife, and she was very, very happy. And so I mean, it's fun to do things the right way and actually pay people, because for the most part, many of the artists that I sync license, the ones that I can send money to, it's the most money they've ever made, because they never made any money in the day. Sanford Clark, for instance, never made any Ramco money on his Ramco songs. But it's great for me just to still be running a label and able to hand out checks, man. It's the way it.
So unlike a lot of label owners, you kind of enjoyed that aspect of the business.
I do. It's due. I appreciate the work and the effort, and when I think about all of the time spent, I look at it. I wish I had a picture of all my tapes.
On a side note here,
there is no side note.
There's a side note.
Oh, okay.
Right here.
Ahead. Is it colored?
So apparently, how many Beans copies did you have on eBay?
How many Beans copies?
Yeah.
Well, just one at maybe three. One at a time.
Because you're sold out and the peeps want.
Really? Well, then somebody bought it since I've been sitting here.
Yes.
No, I will up that. I appreciate that. I promise you, when I go home.
Because remember, he has.
I keep all these things.
Because remember, he has.
Out there. Yes.
He has 350 more.
So please, I apologize for my inability. But Mikey, sometimes I think that if somebody goes to the site, I'm like, and you've got 20 copies, So if you do like one copy at a time, which normally I'm able to do because they sell every 4 months.
You just told everybody you had 350 left.
I did know 5. Yeah, that's probably about right. But most of them are already folded, so that's fine. I mean, it's when I sell out those next 50, and then I got to start going and folding again and trying to remember. There might have been there was a postcard we put in there, a Beans concert postcard that went in there, the stamp number which I made. So there's a lot of work. But thank you for your interest.
Oh, I actually sold you the Japanese sleeves that.
You did?
Yeah, so there's a part of the in-groove in every one of those records. There's part of the in-groove in every one of those records. And don't you? And Mike still got some too. So if you're here, please, I want you to go because I still got those Beans records. Every time you go in, Michael, hey, so why don't you go in there and buy them? But they're not on consignment, are they, Mike? No.
Help him out. Yeah. Then go in there and because he's got money in it, so help him get his money.
Yeah, help me get even on the Beans records.
Yeah.
No, it is a solid release, and it was really well done.
Yeah. You ever see this one?
What's this?
Did you ever see this one, Mike? Huh?
The Dwayne Eddy
pair box? One of my first real. This was.
When did this come out?
Bear Family, of all companies, Bear Family has been the best by far to Arizona music. It really, they have done so many releases over the years. 90-something, 91. Look at that, man. Look at that. Look at the writer's credits.
Are they even doing much anymore?
Huh?
Oh yeah, look at that.
Look at that.
Holy cow, your name is on a book.
Thank you,
Whoa.
Mike. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's on a book. And it's also on a pamphlet, lady. Is this really a book or a booklet, Mike?
It's a booklet.
How would you qualify it? This came in the Phoenix Panorama set that's now out of print. Yeah, these are from way, 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 way back. So what a thrill. I got to throw in my 2 cents with Rob Finnis in the Bear Family box, which is really the best Dwayne Eddy thing. They have repressed it, but Bob Jones, the engineer, did a fantastic job with the tapes to put this together. So this was a fun deal that.
So I see the box here. I see everything, and it kind of reminds me of the old days when we could actually do record shows. Do you miss the record shows?
Mikey, I miss the shows. Well, I've done a couple, at the house in the garage recently, and so much of it is social. I mean, yeah, records are one thing, and that's great, but so much it's just catching up with people. That's what Austin was on a mega level. If you can imagine, 300 tables, Mikey, as opposed to our 20, here, which is great. It's still the same excitement and everything, but I mean, I think a lot of people do. That's why they came, and for a while I had appointment in a mask, and then the last one I just kind of advertised.
But the problem with that is, unlike the local shows, is there's no chance of buying something cool, and that was always my favorite part about the show. It's the
same dealers and the same. So you're right. I mean, in the good old days when we were doing like at the VFW, or I mean, this is 20 years ago. People would plan. There were European dealers, buyers that would travel the country based on the record show, and Austin was always the anchor. There was Austin and Allentown.
Yeah.
Allentown for singles. Those 2 shows were the anchors for record collectors and record dealers. And so in the old days, you would have people actually setting up. They had their, they had their crates. They had their music in crates that they air freighted over. And then you'd have buyers that, would come in and, buy all your Beatles, boom, suddenly all your Blue Note records. Yeah, there was a lot of jazz buyers. That's the thing you don't, as a dealer, you don't realize at the time necessarily what people are into. So I would go to Austin with my Artco records. I had that, which is a very collectible label. Dyke and the Blazers were on there, but that's probably the least collectible of their recordings. So there's an Eddie and there's an Ernie and Traditions. So there are some.
And they're about the Traditions, the Eddie, the Ernie. They're like in the 1,500 and above range.
Yeah. They used. Yeah.
The Dyke goes for about 400 or 500.
Well, probably less if you get a mint one, because they did maybe 600, 1,000 of them. They kept repressing it because they were getting airplay here, and then Original Sound picked it up. But there was a time in there. So anyway, I would be at Austin. and I take great pride in my Arizona record box of all different styles. And so I had my soul records, and I'd find wherever I'd find them a couple of hardcore records, and there were no price guides at the time. There was no pop psych at the time. So you would take them out, $50. Okay. Wow, I get $50. I paid 10. I put them in the thing, and these Brits would come around. John Manship being one, who wrote the original Northern Soul price guide. They were all looking for Northern Soul, which I was, aware of and knew that was a style. But there are so many Northern Soul records out there, and so I had my Artcos in there, and he'd go, "Oh, this is great. 50, okay." And then he, well, let me know. I'll be back next show. Let me know if you can get any more. So I get some more, and I put 100 on it, $100. Yay, And he go, "Okay, that's great. Well, let me know when you get some more." And then you'd meet a guy that said, "Oh, I heard you had some Artcos." Yeah. What'd it go for? $100, Manship bought it. I'll give you $300, man. So you go, oh God. So, there was a lot of that. And then, I don't know, 20 years ago, Manship finally, all these British guys had been come up. John, oh God, I forget his name. He had Goldmine Records. But the Brits were, really into it. And of course, we had some, not anywhere near what some of the other dealers had. But then Manship's record guide, the first one, comes out. I go, wow, finally. Because Jerry Osborne was doing record store guides for years. So he was kind of ahead of it.
It was the more mainstream
his prices
stuff.
Were squirrely. Yeah. And they were never, by the time it came out, it was probably way too much or way too low, because as I looked at, he wanted to buy those records. So why would you say that's $1,000 record and then try and buy it? You'd say, oh, it's worth $300, and then give the guy $4 and he's happy. But anyway, so Manship's guide comes out. Wow, wow, John. So I'm going, let me check art. We'll check these things. So you open it up. I think it was the second edition, because they were like the world's, rarest records. So he had the rarest Northern Soul labels. So the first one is Shrine out of Washington, D.C., which is had a lot of black groups, and their, the value of the records. Being from here, I had no idea of a Shrine. Mike, I used to call myself Johnny D, the king of R&B, and I'm so embarrassed now, Mike, because I knew so little. Once I started going to Austin, and you'd see these real big brain record collector guys, you go, oh my God, and labels you'd never heard of, and songs and groups and stuff. I realized, man, I've been so lucky to be getting away with that in Phoenix, trying to claim that banner, that moniker here on the airways in Phoenix. I'm so embarrassed now because I know so little. Manship's guide came out. Anyway, so there's all these pictures of the Shrine label in Manship's new book. So I turned the page over, and there's Artcos. There's 4 Artco records there, world's record label, 2,000 pounds, and I think the traditions might have been 5,000 pounds or something in that first one, and those are my my records. So I always, everything is a learning experience, and you have to make the most of it. And then after that, I got some more, and I sold them for $1,000 a piece, which I thought, so I don't mind if you make, some money on it. Yeah, but the days of the Brits got away with so much.
But that kind of happened until the end of the 90s when things kind of
Manship's guide came out, that changed, and people, us country bumpkins learned, hey, wait a minute, there's really some great stuff. But then a lot of times they were fair. A lot of times they would come back, and if it was worth $1,000, they give you $1,000 or $1,200, because they knew one guy who would pay $1,800 for that record in the UK. So, it's been a learning experience. But the Austin show.
When did you notice the most? When did you notice the most change? Was it in the early 2000s with the internet?
Yeah,
Because there was always rare
yeah.
records, but they
Yeah.
hadn't gone like.
Well, and then doo-wops. Doo-wops were a big deal, man. I mean, the doo-wop collectors, and there were a lot of them.
So that was more like,
now
so throughout the 70s and 80s, essentially the big money that was trading hands was in what? Rockabilly and doo-wop?
Rockabilly and doo-wop. You got
Rockabilly
it,
and
Cal.
doo-wop.
The Northern Soul comes screaming out of
in.
nowhere.
And then probably throughout the late 90s, that's probably when jazz started blowing up.
Well, and Blue Note has always, no, that had always
But it had
been-
not been to the level it is now. There was no,
that was the internet hadn't hipped people, and suddenly you've got 20 people instead of the one guy standing in front of your table who want that,
that Hank Mobley
that
record.
Hank
Yeah.
Mobley or the Horace Silver, and they're standing there. Because it is funny, you'd walk around Austin and you'd see the same album on 20 different dealers, and the difference in prices was hilarious.
It's crazy.
And then sometimes they're wild and crazy, like butcher cover type stuff, where they just want to show you, I've got it, $30,000 if you want to pay me. I expect to take it home with me for the next show, so it's no big deal. But then you never know when that guy's going to walk along that wants that record and will put up the money.
So you actually had a Sex Pistols A&M.
I did.
And how long did you have it for?
Probably less than 6 months.
So you got it over there.
Yeah.
You knew a guy who had it. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
You bought it, came back here, you needed some money. But what did you sell it for?
I think $600.
And this was in the early 80s?
Yeah, it was to Roads to Moscow.
Roads to Moscow.
Steve, yeah. And because he was one of the first guys that I knew. He'd go over to England twice a year and buy records and come back. So he was very aware of things. And I paid $300 for it. And I thought, that's great. There was a guy I was working at Capitol, part of EMI. EMI pressed a lot of labels, among them A&M. And so when A&M decided to pull the record, some guy on the pressing line wisely took a box of records and hid them and took them out. So word kind of got around, hey, Bob, Bob, he's got some. So I think it was $300, 300 pounds, whatever it was. So
but
I had it
for a punk record.
God
that
save
was
the
probably
it was unbelievable. But it was more about the Sex Pistols and their aura and everything, and the fact that this is it didn't come out well. It kind of did come out, and so
throughout time,
maybe $600 was a good deal, at the time, because it wasn't quite that in demand as it is now, or well known. Well, I mean, if you know about it, it's one thing. If you don't know about it, you're
so we had the 60s, 70s, 80s. This was doo-wop, rockabilly.
Yeah.
We get into Northern Soul the last couple of decades.
Heavily.
Now jazz has gotten crazy. It's blown up.
Yeah.
But you still buy records. You're still finding yourself.
Not that much. As I say, a lot of it has to do.
You're still online. You're still buying.
No, I'll buy Arizona.
You don't.
No, I'll really go to to the line for Arizona records that I don't have. But they're getting few and far between now, because I want that archive to be. I had an offer for that. There was a guy in Australia that was a big Alice Cooper freak. So there aren't that many mascots around, and he kept emailing me every few months, because he had the world's greatest Alice Cooper collection, but he didn't have the mascot. So he would email, I'll give you $2,000. No, I'll give you $3,000. No, I'll give you $5,000. No, I think we got up to $10,000, and the mine, which is crazy money. But at the same time, I'm proud of my collection. I got to have one, or there's no sense, there's no sense. Is there time up? It's binging. I've never heard that sound before.
That's an email.
Oh, that's another email.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, that was, that was that Sex Pistols thing. And I was happy to get the 600 because I wasn't working. I just got back. I thought I was going to get a gig in LA. I was working for Capitol, and I lost my green card. You have to have a green card. So I got one very easily because EMI is a big UK company, so no problem going in. And then you have to renew it, every year, whatever it was. So I was going to go to work for Radar, which was Elvis Costello's label, the Yachts, Bram Tchaikovsky, a lot of just a great imaged label, like Stiff, is another. The Brits are so good in their imaging and stuff. And so I was going to go to work with Radar, and they were going to open an office because Warner's funded it, Warner Brothers Records, and at the Warner Brothers lot in LA. So I was going to move back to the US, have a little kind of boutique record label. I was going to be the, whatever, director of operations, whatever, US for Radar. Elvis was already on Columbia, so that wasn't part of the deal, but Nick Lowe, I think, was there, and a lot of those, Ian Dury. I mean, just some, well, I'm thinking stiff. Anyway, they had Bram Tchaikovsky, the Yachts, and some other groups. But at the 11th hour, these guys from Warner US came over to England, to London, to see some of these groups that they were going to be financing in the US. So I think maybe it was the Yachts, and it was some other group. Anyway, the two groups, the Warner Brothers guys, nah, we're out of this. So that deal ended, and then for a while I was going to move to New York, and Polydor was going to distribute it. But they ended up just cherry picking the Yachts, and I think Bram Tchaikovsky came out on Polydor. So I was kind of in the UK, and so I came back. I was in LA for a while, running around. No, I was fine there. I had a good, nice severance and all that. And but then I got back to Phoenix with this wonderful trunk of 45s, because I used to be able to go into Virgin Records, and anything, it went on the Capitals tab. So I could just go, oh, please, boom, whatever, boom, oh, the Damned, oh, no problem, boom, boom, boom. I just kind of go through. So I had a great collection of music and 45s. I got back here, and I was kind of looking around for a while, because I was hoping to get another sales job, but that was getting kind of cut back then. And they just had the guy in LA fly over to service Phoenix. They didn't pay for a guy here. And so anyway, that's kind of the time that I ended up selling it. But on the other hand, Tommy Vasquez at KDKB, they had this KDJQ, this number 4 country and western station, daytimer, that they wanted to turn in. They thought, well, let's try something. Country's not making it. So there was a station in Seattle, KXAM, I think it might have been, but it was doing this rock of the 80s modern music format, basically doing all the Clash in the UK and the Jam and just all of the, UK music, and then mixing in American music. And so Tommy came to me and said, hey, Johnny, would you want to program this station? And I said, would I? I mean, that would be great. So we signed on. It was 1980, and we signed on daytime only. They broadcast the morning show on KDKB till 10 to kind of give us a lead in. And then we'd sign off at sunset, which may be 5:30 or 7:30, depending on the time of the year. And so that lasted for 6 months. But I had a wonderful base of British music. Unfortunately, no Sex Pistols on A&M at the time. But anyway, that's what happened after I came back from the UK. And but before I got the K-15 job, Off the Wall on the Air, I sold the Sex Pistols, thinking, oh, $600. That's a nice return for my money.
In such a short amount of time.
I
think when I was in Europe at Ultrek, maybe the last copy I saw sold for 30.
Maybe, yeah, it's up there now. I had a friend who was he was the managing director at A&M, and they had like 25 of them in their safe, and I kept trying to, after I came back and sold it and realized, I kept writing him, hey man, can you break in? Can you do a friend effect? Can you do me a solid, man? And
never happened.
For whatever reason. Yeah. And it was like maybe 10 grand and 8 grand, I mean, it had gone up significantly into the thousands of dollars then. But I've got a nice scan of it, Mike, if you ever want my personal.
Your personal copy.
Yeah, there you go.
So I think we're going to wrap it up here. We're getting.
Are we? I can't tell you we haven't even got into Evening Star, Mike. We haven't talked about the men.
Well,
we haven't talked about my current favorite, Man Purse. Check out Man Purse. It's John Rawhouse and Jerry Donato. It's a great new music CD, a great band. Phoenix National Guard Army and Hills Books and Records, my first place.
You're going to come back next month. We're going to talk about the Wild Times.
Yeah, but then I can't talk about myself, Mike. I mean, I got
There'll be plenty of time to talk about yourself.
I got to sell this stuff. Okay, can I tell you just one story?
Tell me one
Come
story.
on, it's free time.
Free time.
The people are digging.
The people are
So after K-15 went down, Danny Zalisco was running Evening Star. Danny and Kitty were the promoters here in Phoenix. And so I kind of, because, you know, they'd been advertising on the station, so we kind of knew each other and we'd promote their shows. So I started working, I wasn't a full-time employee, but I'd get paid by the show as a production manager. So I was babysitting bands. That was kind of what I was doing there. So one show, James Brown at the Celebrity Theater. And I have to go back to tell you that my very first, blow your mind. What was the first record you heard that you just went, holy crap? Or, I mean, what was there one? Was there a moment?
Yeah.
Which was?
It was actually Elvis's Aloha from Hawaii.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just the record. It was the combination of the record and the video and watching it. And
oh, so there was a video for it.
Yeah, they did a concert.
Oh, well, the concert, yeah, live from. Okay.
But I heard it on CD first, and then when you put the CD vinyl, actually, I had it on vinyl. You put the
vinyl, yeah.
Well, I'm not that old, but it was in the '90s. It could have been a CD, but it happened to be my father's record. And then you put the image with the music and the diamond rings and the cake, kissing ladies during "Love Me Tender." Take exactly have this. Women fainting with the scarves.
Yeah.
That was
couldn't do that in the COVID world. Man.
Couldn't do that anymore. That would be a problem. They would have to
pick it up. Yeah, pick it up in 2 weeks.
Some Lysol. LA is on quarantine. You can't have it.
His scarf. No, I can't give it to you.
So for me, that was like.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
I was a weird kid.
For me, well, I'm weird because
for you, it was
Tempe,
James Brown.
Arizona. James Brown live at the Apollo. So
probably one of the absolute greatest live records of all time.
I still agreed. Yeah. Many people agree. So for me, a little white kid, I think I don't know if I got a set of drums, but I got a Hills Books and Records in Tempe. I took it home. And I don't know if I heard it on KCAC, because in those days, they would play the whole record, Mike. It was only like 30 minutes long, both sides, right? So they'd play one side and flip it over. I mean, it didn't, no interruption. Hey, we're turning it over. Play the whole thing. And so, wow. So anyway, it was just that thing. I got one. I took it home. I just sat there and listened to it. And, just the top of my head, I'm going, what is going on? How is he making these people so excited? Yeah. What is he doing? I mean, this is before video. I maybe been on, I don't know, Ed Sullivan, maybe, but there's nothing like that constant screaming and the callbacks, James, all the girls screaming and just the interplay and the tightness of the band, man. Yes. He'd just drop it and then off they'd go in the night train or whatever. Okay, so anyway, I played him. I did radio shows. We played, music at Tempe High School. I might have been out of then, but I played a lot of James Brown. Make a long story even longer as I can do.
You were promoting him for years.
For a year. Thank you, Mike. For a year. We were buds, man. I was the king.
He didn't know you were buds, but you were pumping that music for years. But in my mind, I was.
So
and you assumed, obviously, that he would know.
Of course, he would just know. So anyway, years later, I'm working for Evening Star, the Celebrity Theater. Somebody wants to. James is playing. Yeah. Somebody wants to see James. He's in the dressing room down the stairs. First dressing room on the left. Mm-hmm. So went down. The guy was upstairs. Door opens. Might have been Danny Ray or someone. Yeah, door opens a little bit. So there's Danny. So I see. There's James Brown. Had the do-rag on. Yeah. Sitting there getting ready for the show. I go, James, Mr. Bob Johnson's upstairs. He wants to see you, And so he comes up, pushes Danny Ray kind of out of the doorway, So the door's kind of, open a little bit. So I'm there. Close. So he says, I'm Mr. Brown to you. Danny can call me James. Kitty can call me James because I know that. But I'm Mr. Brown to you. And it was one of those moments where you're just so heartbroken and shattered. I'm going, but I know you. I can do the opening to the Live at the Apollo. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for start time? It's start time at the Apollo. The hardest working man, James Brown. I had that thing down and we were tight. and I knew all the 45s, and I knew the varies and all this stuff. I was just
Deflated.
Talk about a crushed moment. But as I've read all of the bios and stuff that have come out, even, to this day, that, that was a big thing. Even the people that quit him still called him that was his way. I'm reading a wonderful book that Alan Leeds wrote, who was his road manager, publicity guy. And he wrote the story about, how he insisted that everybody call him Mr. Brown, and everybody was referred to as Mr. within the organization, that was his way of getting respect. But that was probably one of the worst moments of personal hurt
because you
in my
because you loved him so much. But it was kind of probably relatively common amongst.
Yes. Oh, it had to be. Everybody had to call him Jay. I mean.
But no, I don't mean just him. I would imagine you took a lot of crap from a lot of musicians.
When you babysit, of course you do. I mean,
that's why you stopped doing it.
But that's why you're there. For the most part, it was. But it was, it was a wonderful run. And we were doing dualies. I mean, you meant dualies and God, the Star System, and after the Gold Rush, and the Electric Ballroom.
But Danny was doing
Celebrity.
He was doing major shows at that time.
Yeah, but
he was doing Pink
tons
Floyd.
Of the clubs were the bread and butter. Those were occasional, and he had Partners Jam. Oh, I'm going to tell you my other one. What time? You said we had
let's go.
Huh?
Let it
Thanks,
rip.
pal. Listen. So my other big disappointment, Johnny D show. What's it like down on So Pink Floyd at the stadium. Was it Pilots?
What year?
The Phoenix Giants Stadium. 90 something.
So this is probably like the Division Bell tour.
Might have been Quad Sound maybe.
Well, that's probably all Pink Floyd shows.
No, it was the one. It was the one with the piggy. The one with the pig that came down from the back, the inflatable pig.
Yeah, but that was
2 nights.
Pig is Animals from the 70s.
All right,
but
so it was Animals.
If it was Animals was in the 70s.
Well, then that was it then.
This was in the 90s.
No, this was in the 90s.
The story you're telling me is from the 90s.
Yeah, you're right. I'm getting it mixed up. But it was.
They've implemented the pig in there. Even Roger Waters still has the pig.
Well, okay, but it was a big deal, and they had these huge cranes. That they had to station across the country. That they had like 3 stages. They had 3, and then one every night.
You had backstage passes from it. I'm pretty sure it's the Division Bell.
All right, so maybe Division Bell. Okay, so the pig comes up. So one story was the first night. The pig's he's in a tent up above, with this crane up there. So the first night, cue the pig, and he wouldn't come out. He just they opened the doors up there. He's supposed to come down and crash into the stage, the pig, So he's just kind of sitting up there, and the pig is just kind of floating up there and coming back and coming forth, and didn't come out. Well, the next day, it's called burling the wheel, to go on the cable. They needed to rough it up a little bit so it would get some traction to go down the thing. So I got to take the guy around, and you're calling around, hey, Bob's Machinery Shop, listen, if I need to run a thing, you have to do it today, blah, blah, and they're all, nah. So anyway, found somebody to do it, took the guy over there, we burled the wheel. The second night, the pig came right out, went right down. Okay, that's the number one story. But the most embarrassing thing was, working for Danny, the band stays at one hotel, the crew stays at another hotel. Makes sense, just expense wise and all the other things. So
the cheaper hotel.
But not Pink Floyd. I mean, things go. But you're right. So I had, for whatever reason, in my mind, and there's a book, and you're advancing the show, and you're arranging for the buses and stuff. I'd given the bus driver the band's hotel. So they had a really great British production lady, just surly as hell, as one would have to be, whipping all these crazed guys into shape. So she, as the bus is coming up to whatever the Biltmore or whatever it was for the crew bus, she tells the bus driver, this is not our hotel. Because she could tell, number one, and then so it was in their book, of course, in the tour guide. So they went to the thing. But she came back in the trailer. I was, Mr. Cool Breeze in the trailer answering the phones. Hi, production. She came back and just reamed me a new one for giving the bus driver the wrong hotel. So that was another Johnny D. It hasn't all been roses and fun.
This was what band?
Pink Floyd.
So the band was staying probably at the Biltmore.
Or wherever. Yeah,
Probably the Bill.
lovely resort,
Phoenician
somewhere.
or something.
Right.
Yeah.
That style hotel. And then the band was
just rolled up.
The
so
Hyatt, whatever,
When they rolled up onto the beautiful grounds,
yes,
she knew.
This is.
She's like, this is a mistake.
Yeah. So
this day in our hotel.
Thing. I hate giving up all that information, but otherwise it was fun, man. I mean, it was great. But people always want to get backstage, and I'm the guy saying you can't come backstage. But because I love music and to be that close. But there's a ton of stories, and Danny's written a book now of with a lot of those stories. But I was a lucky boy. I wasn't in records. I've always managed to
make a living
in the music business, and here I am all these years later, and we're planning this wonderful Wild Times project. So we're still doing it. Sync licensing is working, and I've got a garage full of stuff that I can't sell, but I know I've got one confirmed bean sale.
I believe we do have one confirmed bean sale.
Fantastic. I'll get it out.
And you're going to put some more beans online. So
I will. I promise. I didn't realize, but it's only recently because I try and keep everything up to date. But sometimes you sell it and you forget. But I'll put some Quan.
Put some Quan on.
Yeah,
because the folks might need that.
Are we doing okay? Are we getting a few? Are people enjoying our?
Well, I don't know if they're enjoying themselves, but
well, that's a different subject.
I don't know what they're doing on the other end of the screen.
That's true. Isn't that true? Yeah.
Oh no! Look, wait. Confirmation.
Confirm.
The people are digging it.
Thank you.
I mean,
that's
but
wonderful.
I'm sure he's.
It's a great way to relate. As you can tell, I'm a very shy guy.
Yeah,
but that's
hard to keep you quiet.
It is,
actually.
like you.
Yeah.
And then. But that's part of the thing, getting back to the shows, man. That's part of the fun. We do this stuff at record. You have that interaction.
I sorely miss doing the record shows. The record store shows for me have never been something I've ever needed to do.
Right.
There's virtually, I got a store, got an online business. There's very little money to be made at the record shows, but there is a lot of fun. We go to lunch, we get Texas, we hang out, we drink our coffee, we eat our stale donuts in the morning provided by the venue.
We talk about people and dealers as they come in. And go out,
behind their back.
Yeah, behind their backs, of course.
It's like, it's like the barbershop.
It's all in love. It's all good. It's like the barbershop.
More like, like the barbershop.
Yeah.
And then like occasionally I found a beautiful, lovely copy.
Oh, tell that story, Holmes.
A beautiful copy of.
So, okay. Are you going to tell it or am I going to
Go ahead and tell it.
Because I'm the one.
Go ahead.
I'm the agreed, whatever it is. Aggrieved person. Anyway, so we're doing a show. At the Italian American, was Italian American?
No, this was out west.
Say the other one out west.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
The Knights of Columbus. Or
Knights of Columbus.
So we're out there, and the part of the deal is you have to get in there early. If you're not there early, when Ma and Pa Kettle show up, who aren't regulars and don't know about pricing or anything, and you can jump on their records right away. So there's always guys. That are doing this is people. It annoys the hell out of me.
So actually,
don't touch my records until I get set up.
So me and Angel have it down pat. I go around and look at all the records.
Yeah,
and
got Angel.
And my dear wife actually humps the boxes.
U-Haul boxes. You are the luckiest man.
She humps
in the world,
the U-Haul boxes
in and out.
And this is even before vodka, Dr. Pepper's.
Gone. She goes and opens the store, but you're right. You have to hump them out.
I hump them out.
Yeah, but anyway, so we're this is kind of long, and sometimes they show up kind of late. So I'm the only guy. I don't have an Angel. So for me, I'm constantly looking over at my table. Oh, anybody there? Anybody?
While you're shopping.
While I'm shopping.
You're looking across the room. I have
to, because you got to get over there. And first come, first serve. So there's a guy, and he's got. So were you over there at the same time? There was a box that said jazz, wasn't it? And you were going through the jazz. Wasn't that it?
Yes, there was.
And I was going through some other records next to you that weren't in the jazz thing. So we're both standing together in this dealer guy. And the guy, I think, goes to Mike. Oh, you like jazz?
Like jazz.
You like jazz? And Mike says, yeah, sure. Because he wasn't too impressed, whatever was in there. So he goes, well, I got a few more things down here. Was it just the one or a few more things?
It was a few. It was like
a couple more albums.
It was that, and there was like some modern English. It was like some really bizarre stuff
hodgepodge.
That wasn't even jazz.
Yeah, that he hadn't put on the table yet. So the guy pulls the thing out, and I think it was right there.
Right on top.
Right on top was a Sun Ra transition, man. And it just, I mean, your jaw's dropped because you rarely, you rarely see these things at our level of show. They're in Austin maybe, but rarely here. And they would normally have $1,000 price tag or what, and with book. Oh my God!
Yeah, so it was like the most near minty copy.
Holy crap!
With the book.
So I think the guy had $100, a little sticker on it, $100. Wasn't that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so
I didn't have the money.
You didn't have them. Well, that certainly didn't stop you. And I'm thinking to myself now, and Mike was going, I'll buy it or something. And I'm thinking, which is a real no-no, like reaching in front of a guy going through the boxes. There's some no-nos, but I'm thinking to myself, hey, I'll give you $500 for it right now to kind of, but we're friends, and so I didn't say it at that time, but Mike ended up getting it. The best copy might be in the world, man. It's absolutely beautiful. Spines are great. The booklet is pristine. The staples are in there, because there are certain things that I've wanted, and I had a copy without a booklet with some split seams, and it was doable. So I've had one of those for a long time, but to see it there and just to miss it out by just being not in the jazz box. So, do you like jazz? I said, yes, I do. Oh, $100? Oh, that's fantastic.
Like
and then
jazz.
Mike would go, then you would go, well, would you take 75? That's always the best. That's always the best. But on these things, you can't. You just go, 100. Okay. All right. That's fair. But yeah. So anyway, long story short, but I did end up, it did join the archive.
So I ended up, he had a rare Arizona record, Bear Mountain Band, with the legendary Crotch Crickets.
Weak.
Good. Like I was talking about earlier on, there's some good psych and garage and guitar records, but it's tough. Like this Wild Times, it's tough to find a solid, cohesive album through and through. The Bear Mountain is not one of them, but I got that from him. I got his copy.
Yeah.
I got a big fat check.
Yeah. You made out good.
With 4 digits.
You do.
So I got your Sun Ra, the Bear Creek.
That's all right. I got the best one.
You do. But I got the vinyl. Your vinyl was actually quite nice.
Yeah, I know. But the book,
doesn't
sometimes
have the book.
It's all about the pay.
But to find those early transition records, they were kind of made on the Folkways backing,
vinylite, and the glue. The labels are always loose.
The labels are always loose.
And
it's styrene. It's styrene.
It's styrene. So it's just the worst.
But the covers just disintegrate. But it's actually
spines are always.
It's one of my favorite Sun Ra records. He's doing. It's before he got into the. Before he got into the. Yeah, I mean it's out there, but it's a little traditional. It's more tame. Yeah, it's more tamed. Before you got into the more avant-garde.
We've really rambled on. You said it 90 minutes or 2 hours, and I'm sure we're well.
No, we're actually only 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 28 seconds.
Is this the longest one you've ever done?
No, we did like 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
2 minutes?
2 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. So we're doing. Okay.
But Angel was.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Can I try? What does a Dr. Pepper and vodka taste like exactly, Mike?
I don't know. We'll have to ask her.
We'll have to ask Angel.
Good. She would smuggle them. She'd pour half the Dr. Pepper out and she would top them
off. Can we talk about disappointments, Mike?
I'm hungry.
The Candelo comedy album. I thought, Mike Candelo, Wallace and Ladmo, it's got to be great. So he actually had a concept comedy album that existed in its entirety. There was an acetate of it. And it was kind of one of those Mike Candelo, because he did the phase 1 thing. So this is all around the same time. But it's wild kind of, crazy song. That's for Ho Ho Ha Ha Hee Hee. A couple of them came out on singles.
What was that?
That were the album. Huh?
What track?
Ho Ho Ha Ha Hee Hee Ha Ha.
Okay.
On Ramco Records.
Yeah.
So that was the theme for the Wallace and Ladmo show. Okay, so that had been out on a 45. Some had been booted on Pebbles and stuff, but it had never been out in its entirety. So me, Big John, think, my God, I'm gonna put Candelo's in order as he heard it with little bits. There's little audio bits in between the tracks. Plus, I'm going to get his first records. I'm going to get Last Friday's Fire, some outtake. I'm going to get something off his last album, the Morgan Candelo combo. So I thought, man, I'm going to put it out on my famous Sosumi label, as it's known. And this is going to be, I'm going to do 500, I've still got probably 650 of these. I thought, because you know, the other one, the music from, that sold about 7,000. That first Wallace and Ladmo, the greatest hits, that sold maybe 7,000 over the years. So certainly my Candelo fans would support this, but it's another, you know, you just
you're
think there are more
You're
fans
too
out
close
there.
to the music, maybe.
Well,
you need the guy like me telling you this is really great.
So this one, I mean, the Wallace and Ladmo, and I've
this is sold a ton. This is
sold a ton. So you would think, okay, the guy, the musical genius behind this, Mike Candelo, would don't forget to go out to the MIM. It's now open and see the
is it back
audio.
Of COVID,
I think it is, yeah, but you got different hours, different times or stuff. But there's a wonderful display out there of him on the Wallace and Ladmo show as the Salt River Navy Band. And
for you guys who don't know, Wallace and Ladmo in Phoenix is a local. It was for what 40 years was a local kids show, similar to Bozo. You know, it was a local kids comedy oriented.
Yeah, with skits in between cartoons.
Very similar to like the Bozo show.
Yeah. So it had a great history here. And Mike was the musical kid genius who put the band together, and they would do live music. And then people, you know, Dick and Dee Dee would come into town and they're performing that night. They'd go over to the Wallace and Ladmo show in the afternoon, and the kid he'd know the record because he'd heard it. And he would play the song with the Mike Candelo combo, who widely watched and influenced many.
But a lot of hot groups actually showed up on Wallace and Ladmo, right? I think you had some
bands.
Pictures. Yeah, bands.
Well, yeah, not necessarily.
Did you
there
have
was a
the
Saturday
Tubes?
show. No, never.
Who was it that
they were in the audience?
You had some
were in the
pictures
audience.
on your Facebook
Vince
recently.
Welnick and Prairie Prince were in the audience getting Ladmo bags, but
didn't you have? I thought you had some stills that you purchased recently that had some. Was it the Monkeys or somebody?
No, there was some Monkey, but I don't think the Monkeys.
I thought you had some stills because you.
No, I post stills from Johnny Franklin. I've got Johnny Franklin's archives, and occasionally, I just did last week. I put a picture of Dick and Dee Dee performing at Stage 7.
I thought there was some like Monkeys or some tie-in Wallace and Ladmo I saw recently.
No, I don't think so, but I could be wrong. But Wallace and Ladmo presented a lot of live music, local bands, and then there was a Saturday show called, I think, Take 5 or something that Pat McMahon hosted. There was nothing but music. But the point being that Mike Candelo would provide all these music for these skits and these different groups that they would kind of, you know, come up with, and Beatles groups and different things that were great. And so I thought any Mike Candelo thing, he was just
the Wallace and Ladmo CD actually has kind of a lot of Beatles spoofs. That was kind of
correct. And who knew at the time?
And maybe that was the selling power to it. Was the Beatles spoof.
Check with the publisher about changing the lyrics. I don't think so. Yeah. No, nobody thought. I mean, at the time, and it's so good with 4 pieces. Mike and his band did such a great job on recreating in 30 seconds, you know, Ladmo in the Sky with Almonds, you know, A Day in the Life, Sonic Boom, which is Purple Haze. I mean, the music on there was classic for us who grew up here, and then was on Pebbles and stuff over the years. Some of it kind of came out.
Psychedelic
but compilation I thought, this CD, man, that's my rocket to stardom, gold mine. Once again, Mike, I hope the Wild Times.
The Wild Times is fantastic. Right. This is not a comedy CD. This is a analog.
I get you.
Sonic
Marvel. And your audio high fidelity fans out there that appreciate the optimum in
it's the highest of high fidelity of a psychedelic record you're gonna get.
That's true.
All right. True. Put the beans on when you go home.
I will do that, and I'll put the record away too. But in any case, put the beans. It's a take on words.
Gotcha.
Put the beans on the stove. Kind of a thing. You gonna have a good holiday here?
I hope so.
You're going to be hunkered down here.
We're going to be hunkered down and working. It's working here, working here.
Yeah. Is there a record store? Is there any big release thing between now and Christmas, or is Record Store Day and all of that minutia?
So Record Store Day is
over with, done.
Record Store Day done. They announced June. They pushed Record Store Day back till June. For us, it's just for me, it's always the audiophile reissues. The Coltrane was huge. We did the Nina Simone reissues were huge. Actually, for you guys who are tuning in at the end here, there's not as many people as we started. There is going to be an absolutely monumentally huge restock from Mobile Fidelity in the next week or so. So that's going to be, it's going to be big.
Here's the reissue. It's come out yet once again that Mike Candelo's
the newest
Wallace
version.
Ladmo's greatest is newest version with a couple of bonus hubcap and the wheels.
More Beatles spoofs.
Yeah, Desert Doo-Wops, the Don Cole story, Phil and the Frantics, just a few, and check it out. Just punch in any one of these, and then you'll get to it, and then check out Seller's other items. And I encourage all of you, if you're a fan of music, go to my fabulous website, azmusicdude.com. I've got
you catalog a lot
Arizona,
of
a lot of stuff, Arizona record labels, Al Casey discography, Don Cole discography. And then as I get my record projects, I list them there. So you can go through there.
But all
and
this
look
stuff
at
can
some
be
of these
purchased
releases.
on the eBay page.
It can, and there are links there that will take you to where you can.
And
buy
for the
this
locals, like I said, I
appreciate your
stock
support.
most of these at the store in our local
He
section.
does and has for quite some time because they don't sell. But I appreciate that, Mike. You're a great
Occasionally.
guy.
Occasionally they sell.
All right. Yeah.
All right, guys. Until next time.
Later.